Dickman here.
Johnston here.
Grillo here.
Lorick here. Kavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Grill here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Excellent. Minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review minutes from 2 weeks ago of May 9th?
Dickman makes a motion that we approve the minutes of May 9th, 2017.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye. Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski,
Grill,
aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, item number 3, item 4, significant common council actions. Carrie?
Council took the following actions at their May 16th meeting and approved an ordinance approving the rezoning of the properties at 6912 and 6912R South 27th Street from B2 Community Business, RD1 to Family Residential, and RS4 Single Family Residential to I1 Institutional with no change to the RRO Regional Retail Overlay District, with a conditional use permit for a religious institution. Also approved an ordinance amending a section of code to allow dog training, dog grooming, and dog daycare facilities as conditional uses in the M1 manufacturing district. Approved a resolution creating, describing, and making certain findings and approving the project plan for tax incremental district number 13. Approved a resolution amending the project plan for tax incremental district number 6. Approved a resolution amending the project plan for tax incremental district number 11. And approved a resolution approving a certified survey map of the property at 10303 South Oakwood Parkway. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Carrie. We will move on to new business. We have a little bit of a loaded agenda here. So item 5A is preliminary plan for a subdivision review. Who's taking that one tonight? Carrie?
This is a two-phase subdivision that's just south of the existing Glen Crossing subdivision, which is shown in red on the screen. And this is the proposed subdivision addition. This is shown in 2 phases. Phase 1 will have 23 new residential lots, single family, ranging in size from 12,322 square feet to about 20,116 square feet. And phase 2 will add another 21 single-family residential lots ranging in size from 13,125 square feet to 25,366 square feet for a total of 44 lots combined. There are new internal public road connections that will pass east-west through the development, and those are proposed to be named West Morningside Lane and West Sunrise Pass. Nighthawk Trail and Rosewood Trail would also be extended south. Outlot 5 at 2.17 acres is primarily wetlands and floodway that will be dedicated to the city for drainage purposes. There is a 20-foot MMSD utility easement and a 20-foot permanent sanitary sewer easement through Outlot 5. Outlot 4, which was part of the original subdivision, contains the existing stormwater management system for the subdivision. Other drainage and utility easements are shown throughout the subdivision on the proposed plat. Staff recommends that the applicant work closely with the water and sewer utility for all connections. Proposed lots are going to be deed restricted, so even though the RS3 single-family residential zoning district requires a front setback of 30 feet, these will be deed restricted to a minimum setback of 40 feet. Building envelopes with proposed building locations are shown on the plat. There are temporary turnarounds and cul-de-sacs for each phase at the end of Rosewood Trail and Nighthawk Trail. They will extend onto a portion of Lot 61 for Phase 2 and Lot 71 for Phase 2. Should those roads be extended for development, if the subdivider obtains the property to the south, those would also be extended through the property. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission approves the preliminary plat for the Glen Crossing addition submitted by Robert Stack, Glen Crossing LLC, for the property at 8400 South Nighthawk Trail, subject to conditions 1 through 3. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Before we move ahead, is the applicant here? Would you please approach podium, name and address, and please kind of just give a synopsis of your proposal.
Chair, thank you, Mayor. Thanks to the Commission for the opportunity to make this presentation. This subdivision obviously is...
Name and address.
Yes. My name is Bob, or Robert Fox, and I'm at 20711 Watertown Road in Waukesha.
Thank you.
Said this plat has been before you some time ago, and we had followed the alignment of the city's street, which required that crossing of Oak Creek, and that's when we went back and had to do a new revision plat to take out that crossing due to the DNR regulations and requirements at that time. And basically, this has been shelved for that period of time, waiting for the economy to turn around, which it seems to be a demand now that we're looking forward to. And I'm the surveyor on the project, so I'm doing all the design work. One of the things that is brought to our attention is that the residents in the first phase felt they would like to see larger rear yards, so we're looking at maybe going to a 35-foot setback rather than 40. I was looking at it on our construction plan. I don't know if that was of any consequences due to the fact that we're still larger than the minimum, which is 30 on the front yards. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer and address anything.
I'm sure we'll have some.
Sure.
Excuse me. Well, excuse me. We'll have you back up as the questions arise, but I'm sure we will have some. We do have a few citizens that would like to make some statements, so I think we'll hear from them next. So, based on the addresses, I have Don Majeski. Come on up, sir. Please just identify yourself, name and address for the record.
Don Maciejewski at 1026 West Glen Crossing, Director of the Association for Glen Crossing. One of the concerns I have, and as do many people in the subdivision, is the current entrance on Pilgrim Parkway serves the existing first phase of the subdivision, but it also is used by a lot of the people in the adjoining subdivision, which is just south of us. The addition of this new phase here will add all those other properties with just that single entrance to Pilgrim Way. What I'm advocating, or you might consider, is requiring them to, it looks like there is going to be an access from 13th Street on the south end of the new addition. And what I'm considering, asking you to consider, is to requiring them to make put in that roadway right now, so there's an additional way, not only for construction, but eventually, so all these people aren't funneling past all these homes to get into that second part of the subdivision.
We'll address that. We have actually our traffic guy here, but actually at this point in time, until they get control of the southern part, I don't think that would be possible. Am I correct, Brian?
The other thing is, when he mentioned these setback requirements that are changed now, the existing subdivision declaration states that there's a 30-foot setback, and they want to increase it or change the setback. And our association declaration and bylaws state that any subdivision will adhere to the ones that are existing. And so he's attempting to change the new subdivision for what he thinks is a betterment. But the association is stating that we had to abide by those laws, and the bylaws state that any new additions will be bound by the original ones that we were bound by.
Understood. At this point in time, that would be a question for Mr. Fox. If they're going to be part of your association, do they carry on? He's indicating yes. Please, you have to be on the microphone.
Did the original Glen Crossing subdivision, that we can be adding these additional phases onto it. And the issue of the setback, that is something that came from the current owners within the first phase. Nothing that we're creating on our own. We're just, they're asking us if that would be a possibility to make that change from 40 feet to 35 feet. I don't really think it affects us too much. It's more of a rear yard setback thing that these people were looking for.
The first phase was 30 feet?
No, 40 feet. We restricted it to 40 feet because what it does, it provides a little bit more parking on the residential driveways versus going to 30. And then Basically, you've got 2-car parking versus a 4-car parking situation on a driveway.
Okay,
That's the only
thank
reason.
you. Let's get through the people. Next, we have John Belke.
John Belke, 8506 South 13th Street. My question is residentially zoned? Is it zoned for ranch houses or 2-story houses?
Carrie, you want to take that?
The zoning district doesn't require that you have any particular type of house, just as long as the minimum requirements for the type of house are met. So they could build ranch, they could build 2-story, they could even build up to 3-story as long as it met the zoning district requirements.
My question is, I'm bordering Ditmar. I am the last house on the south. So if they buy Ditmar's land, that's where that road would come in from behind. Now, if you look down behind my house, along with all the other people on 13th Street, you see a tree line, Ditmar's tree line, and a tree line crossing by the creek that's out there. You put up 2-story houses up there, we don't see that tree line anymore. And we've been in Oak Creek since 1957. I think the people on 13th Street should have a chance to see the tree line. We've been living here. These guys come in here, they bought the land, they could do what they want with it, but we should have the right to be able to see nature. So is that going to be allowed to build 2 stories up there?
Again, by code, they can build the type of home they need as long as it doesn't cross the ordinance. So they could build a 3-story tri-level, they could build a,
So what about people on 13th Street? They have no say in
they
it?
could build 2-story homes too on their lot.
Well, I don't want to build a 2-story home. I want my house the way it is, but I want to look in the backyard and see the tree lines. That's been there since beginning,
John, where's the tree line you're talking about?
along the creek.
Holy cow.
So you build up 2 stories houses there. As I was talking to Greg on the phone this morning, we're by Dave Stahoviak. We're looking out his backyard. You can see the tree line nicely. You look over to the first phase that was built, you see the 2 stories. You don't see the tree line anymore.
You're talking about the yellow portion on the map.
I believe that's the tree line along the creek line. Yeah, that's it. That's why I invited you both over to take a look at it firsthand. You can't see that with the 2-story, or you definitely ain't going to see it with the 3-story.
Won't see it through that neighborhood. I agree with you, you won't see it, but point well taken. I understand your point.
Well, you understand the point, but all I'm saying is we've been here for a long time. People come buy the land, they build it, they leave the city, and people have been here forever.
But John, people do have a right to develop their land.
And the people who've been living here for a long time don't have any rights?
Well,
Come on,
your right
Dad.
can't infringe on theirs to develop either, though.
Like you infringe on ours?
Well, what if let's flip the equation. What if they wanted to watch the traffic on 13th and didn't want your house there?
The house is going to be there. They can build houses, Dan.
I
Not
understand.
2 stories.
I understand, but again, at this point in time, it's a plot. We don't know what type of homes will go there.
Until the home goes up, and then it's too late.
Again, but as a city, we can't restrict and say they're only going to be single-story homes.
Can't do that?
No, we can't.
Okay.
We can't really spot zone that way, Carrie.
There's nothing in the RS3 district that would prevent 2-story or even 3-story homes, not at this point. It would have to be a deed restriction.
It's wrong,
would have to
Dan.
go.
It's wrong.
I think that is it for the speakers. If I missed somebody, please approach the bench, or the podium.
Name's Robert Stack. I'm part of the development group here.
Address, please.
I want to assure this gentleman.
Address, please, sir.
What is that?
Address.
S70 W15905 Princeton Court, Muskego, Wisconsin. I just want to assure him, I would have been in the business for a few years and had my own building company for a while, and I can tell you what the trend is today. Probably 90% of the homes that are being built are ranch homes, 1 story. So what he's concerned with a two-story home, I guess that's what his question is, right?
Correct.
I don't think there's going to be that many there,
But they are allowed.
but they're allowed. yeah.
I mean,
But
we don't want to put false hope in there either.
I understand it, but I just want to let you know that probably 90% of the homes are going to be being built, are going to be ranch homes anywhere.
Thank you for your input. Seeing no one else, I'll open it up to the commission for questions, comments. Chris?
I just have some questions. You lost me on the setbacks originally because they said that currently there's 30-foot setbacks for Glen Crossing, correct? But you had mentioned that you're asking for the setbacks. It was set up in the report here for 40-foot setbacks, but now you're considering 30-foot setbacks. But that doesn't match.
No, the existing subdivision that's there currently, and those homes are under a 40-foot deed restriction setback. 10 feet more than what the zoning ordinance
So it's
requires.
not 30-foot?
So, no, and we're thinking of maybe going to a 35 rather than a 40, just to give a little bit more rear yard space. And that, I said, is coming from the residents who live there. They felt that they would like to see additional space in the rear yards.
So the gentleman with the association, they built with 40-foot setbacks.
Correct.
But they want the group coming in after them to have 30-foot setbacks? Well, that's where I'm confused.
You got to be on the mic, sir.
Mayor, if you understand my
Yeah,
point, I'm a
no,
little
that's why
confused.
I asked
So
that
you're-
earlier too.
The existing homes have 40-foot setbacks?
Yes, and they want to reduce them. And they told us that we have no say about it, and that's the main concern, is that they think they can just unilaterally go there because it's in the bylaws that state that any subsequent subdivision addition was subject to the same rules. All we're concerned about is that they negotiate that with us and not just tell us they're going to change it unilaterally.
So if I get this right, the developer wanted to go initially 30 and is considering 35, and code is 30.
Wanted to go 40.
We were under 40.
Yeah, you want 40.
No, it's not that we want. The restrictions say 40 foot now for our association. In the new section, they want to reduce that to 35 unilaterally. And in the bylaws, it states that any subsequent addition goes under the same restrictions that the original.
And that's where I'm confused right now because we're getting
Okay,
conflicting.
let me try and clarify this. The original subdivision and the original proposal was to have a 40-foot setback. The code requires a 30-foot setback. The amendment proposal before the Plan Commission tonight is to reduce that original setback request of 40 feet to 35. Is that clear to everybody now?
Got it.
Okay.
Brian?
It's really a moot point for this body as well. Our codes and our laws are the 30-foot setback. We don't regulate if they change it by their own deed restrictions. So we look at the 30-foot setback that's required by zoning. That's it.
Bossy, anything?
Yes, I have a couple questions for the applicant. Okay. Okay, can you give us a little more information on the phase 1 of this project in comparison to what exists in this area already?
Okay, we don't want to take any credit for it, but we think Glen Crossing is probably one of the top subdivisions they have in Oak Creek. And our development philosophy has always been, we want to improve. We like to even do better. We actually made these lots a little bit larger than what they are in first phase. And so we're looking to, we're going to have probably some bigger homes over there, but the lots are going to be a little bit bigger. And we think it's going to be a great addition to the first phase that we've had in there. So I don't think the city will be disappointed with the homes that'll be going in there. Should really be benefit to your tax base, quite frankly.
Okay. And just to address one of the residents' questions about the entrance, Pilgrim Parkway, there's only one entrance at this time.
Well, we don't have access to 13th Street from the other end. We've talked to, I've got a pretty good rapport going with the Bricklers who own the property to the south of us, but we have a verbal agreement with them that we're going to probably be able to use 13th Street for an entryway for doing the construction of Phase 1 and Phase 2. Okay, so that we're not bringing the truck, the equipment, the materials, everything through the existing subdivision. Although even if it did, we're only going to go in on Pilgrim Parkway and it winds real quick like, and we're only going to be going by a couple of the homes there anyway. But even that, we wanted to eliminate that if we could. And the people to the south have been just wonderful dealing with them. And Marla Brickler, I've been dealing with her, and she's been very cooperative. She understands, and we have a verbal agreement with her that we're going to be able to get a temporary access from 13th Street to do the construction. So that should benefit everybody.
And then I have a question for Carrie. For item number 1, when it points out the response, that there are going to be actual public improvements, what is that referring to?
That refers to the public streets that are going to be through the subdivision as well as the public infrastructure, which could be water and sewer.
And since we're looking at a plat versus the CSM, what are the differences?
The difference is that this is a larger development. So basically, if this gets approved by the Plan Commission tonight, this is the plan for building all of the improvements for this subdivision. The next step, if they come back for final plat, they would have to have all of these public improvements verified by engineering as being installed per our local codes and approvals before we could approve the final plat, and that would have to also go to council.
Thank you.
Brad?
I have a question about the timeline for Phase 1 and Phase 2. When do you plan to start Phase 1 and finish up with 2?
On my part, I'm the salesman, okay? I wish it was a year ago. But in today's world, I'm sure Brian will tell you here, dealing with all government agencies is like, I don't want to get into politics right now, but anyway, it's been very, very difficult to get through everything. And we just had an entire wetland survey of the land, of that farmland, that put us back for I don't know how long, Bobby. Anyway, I mean, these are just some of the simple things that you got to deal with. Simple, I'm using the word simple. Okay? But we want to construct, it's really dependent on you people here. And when you get everything, we're ready to go. And I fully believe that we're going to have like 22 lots in Phase 1 of the addition 1 and addition 2, and another 22 in the second phase. I would hope, and that's not for me to determine, some guy upstairs is going to determine that, how fast, but I'd like to sell them out this year. Oak Creek needs it. We've been talking to their planning department, engineering department. They've been begging us to, excuse my language that way, but to get some lots, get these going here. Oak Creek has no lots, and these are going to be high-class lots. You will not be ashamed of them, let me tell you.
You still don't have a timeline.
Well, I don't know. Bobby, can you answer that?
Once engineering here has completed the plan review, and these plans have actually been submitted back all the way back to 2006, and we've did modifications to them. So I don't think it is a large process like starting from scratch. But regardless, we're still looking at probably a month to 6 weeks before we can ever get all of our approvals back through the DNR. The sewer, water, and storm sewer have already been reviewed through MMSD and through the DNR Water Resource Division. And since it's been approved previously, they told me just write a letter and state that this is just a resubmittal of what had been previously approved. So it should go relatively quickly. So if that happens, we'd like to get in the ground in a month, but I don't think that's realistic. I think maybe 6 weeks or so of that before we can turn a blade of grass.
About the people here that are in the division would like to at least have an idea when they're going to see construction taking place in that area.
Sure, right.
When it'll be finished.
Thank you.
Wally?
Okay, I do agree with the applicant that Oak Creek does need these type of lots and homes here. And we've been having a lot of apartments and condos, so I'm sure there's a big need for them. That's the good thing. But I did want to ask Brian or Commissioner Johnson on the water basin, as far as for the water, was this sized originally for the completion of the entire project, or is there going to have to be changes made?
Nope, it was all designed for the original stormwater pond that's out there for the entire lots that are being developed now.
Okay, that's good. And then the fire department, I did want to ask. Oh, there he is. I want to ask, because of the one entranceway there, do you have any concerns in case of fire in the long, first of all, initially, and then in the long run, when they all get built?
Mike Kresick, Fire Department. Absolutely. There's always concerns with access for the fire department. And we are looking at a one access into the subdivision, which isn't unique in the city of Oak Creek. Does present some challenges. That's certainly something we would work with. The access off Putes Road and then the southern access off 13th Street are certainly more advantageous. The initial response comes from the southeast for this area. So those two locations would certainly be more advantageous. We also are aware that that's property ownership. We certainly would advocate and like to see those placed. We understand that there's ownership issues associated.
So in the long run, if everything goes the way you'd like to see it go, we should be okay, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. In the long run, if the project continues and roads are designed as planned according to these drawings, that certainly alleviates some of the response difficulties to that area.
Thank you.
Mike, before you sit down, do you consider Wilding an access road also? It's a little further north. The next entrance point is Wilding.
That to the north, that would be an access for Station 3 responding to that territory. So yes, primary response station for this area as proposed would currently station number 1, which is to the south and to the east.
Thank you. Oh, whoop, sorry, Pat.
And not a question, just a comment to the, we had a citizen with the concerns on the woods and the vision and things. I guess just to clarify that, I think that we really try and keep track of quality wooded areas and what we have, but we can't control vision. You got communities on each side of us have things blocking lake views and different things. We can't control that much, so it's unfortunate. I agree with you personally, but we can't stop the people from building there. And some of these guys, you can only go so far.
Please. Name and address, please.
Pat Schaefer, 8514 South 13th Street. I'm at the southern end of that proposed subdivision there. And of course, the access road that you're talking about putting in would be on the other side of the wetlands that we have. And along that, I'm concerned about 13th Street. I don't know how many of you travel 13th Street. Yeah. There have been, actually the only time I ever called you was because there were backups going on that road where we couldn't get out of our driveway for 45 minutes. I don't know something happened that...
I-94 that day had an issue.
No, it was several days. I didn't call you the first day.
Maybe it was a construction on the bridge. I don't recall, but
yeah,
it had to do with 94 and everybody getting off.
Okay. But there's a lot of truck traffic already. We have a big school. We have a big church with a school. We've got school buses going in and out across the street from us. You took part of our property already because of the church going in. I think about 6 months after we moved in. Not happy about all that. Not even happy about the fact that we moved from Milwaukee to get away from all this stuff. And, Oak Creek is, it was a unique area that it was nice. It was close to the city, and yet it was rather urban, and not urban, but rural. And it's becoming more urban as we live there. And we've only been there for 8 years. I can't say I'm a lifer or anything, but we escaped the city. And now, we're talking about putting the sign up again. We don't want that. And I realize progress must happen, but you're going to make some people very unhappy. And I am concerned about 13th Street. Is there a plan for 13th Street?
There is a long-term plan. As you're probably well aware, 13th is County Highway V. It's actually controlled by the county.
Right.
Oak Creek does not have anything to do with it. I'm actually going to ask Brian Johnson to comment on the long-range plan for that. Well, he is our traffic guy. So.
That's it. It's a long-range plans. There's nothing in the works for this section of road currently. We do have a plan that they're working on from Rawson to Drexel, but nothing down here yet.
Well, we saw what you did to Drexel from 13th to 27th Street. And that's not pretty. That's not pretty at all. And I know that you seem to be pretty much on board with all this.
Well,
and,
that was necessary, though. That road, if you take a look at Drexel Avenue, okay, from 13th Street all the way down to Pennsylvania, actually into South Milwaukee.
No, I'm talking about from 13th
I know,
to 27th.
but it's a 4-lane road. In your wildest dreams, 13th to 27th was never going to remain a 2-lane road. It just wasn't going to happen when the rest of the road was 4 lanes.
I don't know. Is that your backyard? I know any of you?
Actually, I have I live in a subdivision adjacent to this. I have a very difficult time getting out. The impact, I am not denying that it was impactful, but what really drove that was the interchange. When the interchange went in.
Yeah.
And
those are things we don't have a lot of control over.
well, actually,
I mean, we do have some control over
as
this.
As a city, we voted and we wanted that interchange in to grow the city. And by all indications, it has grown our city. It really made this successful. It really sparked a lot of things. It's sparking the need actually for these homes. It's progress. I understand how you feel.
Yeah.
And how you'd like to keep
I
that.
guess, you could probably make everybody happy if you would just, think about how close you get to the people that are living, that have houses on 13th Street over there. It's like, are they going to be right in their backyard? Because that's the way it looks. It's like they're going to be right in their backyards.
Well, again, I can't judge where it is. I live in a standard subdivision, and my neighbors are, my lot's probably the same depth back, 30-some feet. And then there's an easement between, and they got 30. There's probably only 60 between the homes. Again, I wish I could make everybody happy. Unfortunately, I don't have that power. We have to go by how we lay out the city and where our ordinances fall. And again, you have rights. They have rights. We just got to find that boundary where everybody can try to live together. So, and that's part of the reason why we're here, to hear everybody's side of it.
I mean, that's what Milwaukee did. They filled up every space, every single space that they had.
Well,
they filled it all in. And is that your vision?
No,
for
you
Oak
have,
Creek?
ma'am, you really have to look at our whole development plan, our concept plan through the whole thing. We do have adequate green space throughout. I know you think we're filling up everything, but even around here,
Kind of looks like it, yeah.
when we put in, there's ordinances that ask, even when we put in a business, that you have to have green space in it. So, I mean, we are, actually, I think we've added some green space. I know we have in the preserve. We've added some parkland going forward whenever we have the chance. Take the lake, for instance. That's another 100 acres plus of parkland, of green land. So I know it isn't in your backyard, but it is there in somebody's backyard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I said my piece.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nothing? Okay. With that, we could move to a motion.
Carl moves the planning commission approves the preliminary plat for the Glen Crossing addition submitted by Robert Stack, Glen Crossing LLC, for the property at 8400 South Nighthawk Trail with the following conditions. One, that a development agreement be entered into between the owner and the city to specify the responsibility for and the timing of public improvements. Two, that all water and sewer utility connections are coordinated with the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility. And three, that all reviewing agency comments regarding recording requirements, future street identification, monuments, curve data, tie distance, certificates per statute, legal description, etc., are incorporated as required.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Dunstan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye. Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Roll aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and input. Item 5B, certified survey map submitted by Jerry Cousins for All-Star Honda at the properties at 7008 and 7018 South 27th and 2500 South Rawson. Carrie, will you handle that, please?
This is a request to combine those properties. It's part of an overall development plan for those properties for an auto dealership. The CUP, the conditional use permit, was approved for automobile sales and service and a private car wash facility in July of 2016. They are proposing to combine those three lots into one. There are some issues that will need to be addressed. Although the lot will meet all requirements following the combination, the officially mapped street pattern is missing. Staff has been working with the applicant and their consultants for several months to verify the location and requirements for that particular road. Easements are not shown on page 1. Easements should be shown on both page 1 and 2 for clarity and for consistency. The signature page needs to be updated with our new mayor's name. There is no dedication or acceptance language included in here for the public road, and that will need to be added. And the surveyor's signature and stamp will also need to be added, and this is all prior to recording. For the commission's edification, access is controlled by both Milwaukee County and WSDOT. They have access from 27th Street and Rawson Avenue. Copies of any and all access approvals and/or permits shall be provided to the Department of Community Development and Engineering Department prior to submission of building permit applications. Staff's recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Jerry Cousin All-Star Honda for the properties at 7008, 7018 South 27th Street, and 2500 West Rawson Avenue be approved subject to conditions 1 through 6. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Before we move along, we have a couple of speakers that would like to speak. Mr. Ed Lazowski. How are you, Ed?
Fine. Good to see you again.
Yeah, nice seeing you again.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. Number one is that I'm Ed Lazowski. I live at 6988 South 27th Street. Been a member of Oak Creek before we become a city, before we were a city. I remember the mayor had to hide. Remember that? He had to hide.
No, I wasn't here.
Oh, I was.
Heard the
That
story.
poor guy had to hide. Milwaukee was after him. Yeah. Anyway, it's history. It's good to know that.
Good hit.
I'm concerned about the property. I'm adjacent to the property, border the property here that's in question today. And I'm concerned that two things. Number one is the water, the drainage. What's going to be how are they going to control the water? What are they going to do about that? The runoff. Because my property is okay at the front end of 27th Street, it's okay. But when you go down to by the subdivision there, it's lower. So the water, wet back there. So I don't want any more water. What I'm saying is that I'm concerned about the water. What are they going to do about the spill, the water. That's one question. The other question is, what's the timetable on here? When are they gonna work on this? When are they gonna start working on this?
We'll have the applicant up after speakers, after the citizen input.
Oh.
Hopefully you can take care of the questions, Ed.
Okay,
If
and
not,
any,
we'll run it by engineering.
okay, then any other questions then after that, if there's any more?
If there's more, you can come back up.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, Mr. Bukashi.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll be answered.
yeah, that'll be answered.
They
by
kind
the
of
second.
blend in there.
What's that?
Item number 2, it's addressed in there too. So we'll get you the answers, hopefully. Hopefully the ones
yeah.
you want to hear too.
Is there gonna be some kind of a buffer there?
You mean,
Between my property and the dealership there?
we'll have to address that going forward. It's
next
the next
item.
item.
Pardon?
This is
We gotta
number
get-
2, we gotta go to number 3.
All we're doing
This
is
is
getting
CSM.
the CSM for the lot
Yeah,
right now.
we'll talk about that after.
So,
Get another shot.
yeah.
Good. I like the shots. Thank you.
And then we have Mohammed Ahmed, 2211 South Rawson. Welcome. Name and address, please.
Mohammed Ahmad, representing 2211 West Rawson. First off, thank you for having me here today. Is Mr. Cousin here today?
He's in back. He's going to come up right after you.
Okay, I just want to applaud him for this. In my opinion, I think development along Rawson Avenue between the freeway and 27th Street is long overdue. Residential property shouldn't even be on the street. I mean, it's prime real estate in the city, and really that needs to be developed. So thank you for taking that first step for starting the process. My question is in regards to the notification map. So my understanding is that his properties in question are on the north side of Rawson along 27th Street and Rawson, but there are numerous roads that are proposed on both sides of Rawson, extending to 27th Street north of his property.
Riverton.
And then also south of Rawson from West Minnesota, there's numerous roads being proposed, basically through wooded area and then going through 7 properties. Is that relevant to his proposal? And if not, where is that coming from?
It's shown and we'll address that
Okay.
going forward. Those are. Carrie, you want to take them now?
Sure. That's an officially mapped street pattern. We have it throughout the city where we show possible future road connections, possible future public roads. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have an immediate plan for those roads to go in. It just so happens that when this property came up for development, it happened to be affected by an officially mapped street pattern. So this is one that we do want to see go through. We are working with the applicant and their consultants in order to make that happen. But it's kind of restricted to this property at this point. So like I said before, there is a street pattern throughout the city, but it's something that can be flexible. We don't have a necessary timetable for every single one of these roads to be put in.
So then my follow-up question is, when the city has basically plans of that sort, do they notify the property owners? Because there's 7 properties that are affected that we as owners had no idea that the city was even considering. And basically it splits the properties in half, which is, needless to say, it's a major concern to us.
Well, the officially mapped street pattern has been in existence for many decades. So this is an old map that we're going on. It doesn't also mean that we have to build every single one that are on here. We have had requests by landowners to vacate portions of these and to change the official map. That is something that we entertain on a case-by-case basis. So just because it's on the map doesn't mean that it's necessarily set in stone. It's just our plan moving forward. And like I said, it has been in existence since the 60s or 70s, I think.
Okay, and we're not necessarily objecting to that. I guess my last question is, where do you have more details on those plans, or if we wanted any more information, who would we contact?
Right now, we just have a street pattern, unless there is a specific proposal for that street to be put in which case there would be more plans. Right now, we're working on the plans for this particular section, and we would be talking about that in the next item, I think.
Okay, thank you very much.
Before we go to council, would the applicant like to express anything on his CSM? No, okay. We'll get you next time. We'll open it up for questions, comments. Wally?
Okay, this CSM is combining all these into one particular area, but how about that unplotted piece of land on the southwest corner, which is where the adult store is now, and it looks like it's out of business, closed up, it looks pretty messy, you know, and I think there was something unique about that piece of land, if I recall from years ago, something that some contract between people had been made up or something in a will or something. You have any ideas? Because I would certainly like to see that combined in with this, because otherwise, you know, that's an entranceway to Oak Creek. And I sure would like to see something nicer there. And the county, I believe when they did the roads, or was that state, they put a nice set of benches there and another, you know, and a nice plaque there. And this just doesn't look right. If we're going to do something, how can we get this in there?
Well, the state currently owns the property.
Oh, didn't even know that.
Yes, the state controls the property. The building is going to be raised at some point. We had been hearing for many weeks that the raise is coming, so that building is going away. Whenever the state is able to sell the property, we've heard that it could take 6 months or more before they're ready to do that. They have to go through their internal processes before they offer it for sale. Should they choose to do that. My understanding is that the developers of this particular project before you are very interested in obtaining that property.
I would think so, yeah, okay.
So it's a matter of time, and it's a matter of, you know, timing, really.
Okay, good. I'm glad you brought me up to date, because I thought there was something special going on from individuals, but this is, now the state has it. And I was concerned because the state also has that KFC building, or somebody has it on 27th and College, and I didn't want this to sit like that building. You know. Okay, thanks, Gary.
Pat?
Just to follow up to Commissioner Dickman, so if the developer's aware, everyone's aware of this, so there's not anything that would radically change any design or if that was to become available, we're not getting the cart in front of the horse at all?
Jerry Cousin, 1597 30th Court, Kenosha. We've been in discussion with DOT already, and so the general plan for our dealership won't be affected by acquiring that land. We're actually the only people other than a municipality or the county that the state can sell the land to. So, you know, we have full intention of purchasing the land and have had those discussions with the state already. So we'll use that as will kind of come up in the next item to create some sort of gateway sign for Oak Creek as well. And like I said, our building plans and our traffic patterns and all that stuff aren't affected by the acquisition of the corner. We don't want that building there either, and we want to make it look as attractive as possible.
Thank you. Okay, seeing nothing else, motion. Oh, sorry, wait. Ed, you have something else on the CSM?
On 27th and Rawson there, we're talking about that corner, right?
Yes.
Did you know that corner, there was Core 6 filling station there?
It looks like it was a filling station.
It was a filling station, Core 6 filling station. You know that, Chris? Remember that?
That I didn't remember, no.
Yeah, I do.
Got me on
Well,
that.
I've been there since, you know, before we were a city, so I know all these areas. And anyway, that corner there, I'm just concerned about those tanks.
You know, I'm not sure if they've been taken out of there or not.
I don't think so. I never remember them being taken out of there.
I would think if they're still there, there'd be events similar, you know how the Clark Station across the street is in
Yeah.
Franklin? They kind of have the ventilation.
Well, that's not there anymore.
It's not there, but they're doing something with the
Yeah,
tanks
they're
because
digging it up,
obviously
yeah.
the ground's not good.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking if that's a state issue, and it will be addressed because the state owns it. So
Okay, so they will check in to see if those tanks are there?
yes,
Yeah.
Sure, that'll all be discussed when they try to sell it, that'll all have to be disclosed at some
You
point.
sure?
oh yeah.
Yeah. Because we don't want that, you know, seeping, all that old stuff there. You know what that means?
And again, it'll be a non-conforming lot. Nobody could build anything there anyways, for the most part. Am I correct in saying that, Carrie?
I would be cautious about saying something like that because, again, if we're talking about the lot being acquired, it could be absorbed into the rest of the land. So to
Well-
say that it can't be developed, I would just caution you against that. in its current form, there would have to be certain things that would have to be done to the land in order for it to be developed.
Thank you. And Carrie's right. I probably shouldn't say it that way because if All-Star Honda acquired it, something could happen. But as far as the city or the county, are those the only entities that could acquire that property?
Well, the city has no immediate interest for acquiring it, but I think Brian has something for us.
Brian?
As part of the state's ownership of it and with the construction of 27th Street, there are no access rights from Rossner 27th Street to that property. So it's landlocked. So that's why there's only the state municipalities or the
Adjacent
adjacent property owners that can purchase it.
Great. Thank you,
You
Brian.
mean there's no access to that property?
No,
There won't be.
there won't be.
Once the building comes down, the driveways will go away.
Oh. What are you gonna do with those tanks in there if there's tanks in there?
If they're,
They'll have to get them out of there if they're there, but that's really the state's issue.
Yeah, I remember when it was Core 6 filling station there, you know? Nobody remembers that. Huh. Oh, well.
Thank you, Ed. Come up, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Mary Jo
Can you
Zielinski.
pull the mic down a little bit?
Mary Jo Zielinski, 2046 West Rawson Avenue. I'm just, so my family has been there for like 50 years. You wouldn't know it to look me. But I'm just concerned about the city's plans for the residential neighborhood that is currently in existence based on this large commercial development and some of the other areas that have recently changed to commercial from residential.
Really, we have no plans whatsoever. I mean, if indeed that Riverton Road would ever go through, I think it was kind of stated that it kind of goes around the wetlands. There's really, I don't think there's anything on the south side of that road that would be developable because it's all wetlands. So, and if anything, we would try to create a buffer from the commercial to the residential.
Okay. Thank you.
If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to register, that there are people living there and we're happy living in our houses.
It's a very well-kept secret, not only to Second District, but Mill Creek, that Cedar Street is a very, very nice, quiet neighborhood. Really nice there. Seeing no more discussion, motion?
Seipert moves that the Planning Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Jerry Cousins, All-Star Honda, for the properties at 7008 and 7018 South 27th Street and 2500 West Rawson Avenue be approved with the following conditions. 1, that the CSM is revised to show the future road right-of-way as approved by Milwaukee County, Wisconsin DOT, and the city. 2, that all easements and wetlands are shown and clearly labeled on all pages of the CSM prior to recording. 3, that the signature page is updated with the current mayor's name. 4, that the dedication and acceptance language for the public road is added to the signature pages. 5, that the survey's name and official seal are added to all pages of the CSM prior to recording. 6, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinated geometric conditions, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording.
Chandler seconds.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Mark, aye. Kevich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Drell, aye.
Seipert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Excellent. Moving on to 5C, we have a plan review, site, building, landscape, and lighting plan submitted by Jerry Cousins for All-Star Honda. That's 7008, 7018 South 27th Street, and 2500 South Rawson Avenue. Carrie.
Plans before the Plan Commission are for the new car dealership with a service center and private car wash. Again, this was approved by a conditional use permit. The conditional use permit for the proposal was approved in July of 2016, and a copy of the conditions and restrictions for that permit are in your packet. It's also located in the 27th Street and Regional Retail Overlay Districts, which are, the codes for which are also in your packet. Staff has been working for several months with the applicant and their consultants on the plans for this development. Due to incomplete information or extensive required revisions, the plans have been held from agendas in an effort to provide the Plan Commission with the most complete information with the most code-compliant plans possible. While the plans are being presented to the Plan Commission this evening, they are still being modified as of writing the report, and staff continues to have concerns with some of these portions of the proposal. Staff report has detailed many of these concerns, and the Plan Commission is being asked to provide feedback to the applicants on these issues. The reason staff is not providing more comment at this time is because we did provide all of our comments in a lengthy report. It's 9 pages, so rather than trying to summarize that into a condensed maybe couple minutes, I would prefer it if the Plan Commission has any questions on what is in the report, that I can certainly address those. But staff's recommendation on the overall plan is that it be held, but that the Plan Commission provide direction to the applicant on the identified issues so that we can have more complete plans for a review by the Plan Commission at a later date. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Before we put it to council, would the applicant like to say anything on his proposal?
So Jerry Cousin again. What we're looking to do is put an automobile dealership there. It'll be a Buick GMC facility, and as kind of been the trend in our industry, as you'll see around with other new facilities that go up, every manufacturer has certain image requirements. So the way that we've proposed the facility is to meet the image requirements as proposed by General Motors, and are willing to make certain adjustments that we've been working with staff to do the things that we can do and still maintain the integrity of the overall GM design program, as well as try to adhere to the code that currently exists. We understand that we will be looking for some exceptions maybe on some material usage, and are open to input on what things we can do, whether that's the signage on the corner once we acquire that property, or if there's other things that we can do to kind of offset the fact that we're looking for that exception, so that we can finalize those plans.
Great, thank you. Questions from the commission?
Just kind of curious as to, it sounds like you've made some modifications to the GM, what they require.
Not to the requirement, I guess, to our original proposal. So one of the things that we've tried to do, like along the Rawson facing side, the wall there, originally it would normally be just precast concrete, but we've looked to put in several large windows along the way. Also to meet the requirement, we would normally use a cheaper or less expensive, maybe metal door for all the entrances for overhead doors. We've gone to all glass doors for that, so that it's visually more appealing to try and create more glass as well. Other things that we've worked with. And then just other small adjustments that we've kind of either talked with Doug or Carrie to try and, for lack of a better way to put it, pretty the project up as much as we can, because our goal is to create something that not only is good for us, but I think it will look good, on that corner and look good for the city.
Jocelyn?
Okay, Carrie, quick question. In regards to, I don't know if it's that rendering, but there were some issues with the overhead doors being glass on a main street. Can you provide a little more information on what the issue is?
I believe that is referring to the fact that our code does not allow overhead or dock doors to be facing a public street. So that is one of the modification requests that needs to be included in the applicant's submission for the modification of standards. As part of our conversations, what we thought might be acceptable as an alternative to moving those doors would be to make them glass so that they appear as windows. But that needs to be, again, that needs to be clarified in the modification, and that's something that is before the Plan Commission to make that determination. If the Plan Commission doesn't feel that the glass doors on the 27th Street side are appropriate, then the only alternative would be to move those doors off of 27th Street. But again, staff was working with the applicant to come up with a possible compromise on this, which is, again, the glass doors. So we do appreciate that very much, that the overhead doors, with the exception of one, were changed to look like windows.
So that is acceptable, or
It's ultimately up to the Plan Commission to
okay.
make that determination, but staff felt that that was an acceptable possible modification to present to the Plan Commission.
thank you. Also, do you have the actual, this is for the applicant, the materials and the colors? Can you provide us more details?
I think the materials that are in question are that we're looking at a fair amount of precast concrete as opposed to stone or masonry. Also, and maybe Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the facade of the building, it's more metal flashing as opposed to, again, masonry or stone. And then in terms of colors, as you can see in the rendering, it's primarily white and black.
So metal, that's a concern.
It would be in the part that kind of sticks out towards 27th Street where you see the All-Star signage right now. The area, that whole area on the top is metal
Black
flash.
part or the gray part?
I believe it's both, actually.
All of that is metal?
Yes. And that's,
What covers, is that the front door maybe? The opening?
I would have to
Like
double check the
under the
plans to see
arch?
if that is metal as well.
Okay, but,
It is, okay. Carrie knows better than me.
so that is not per our code, is that right, Carrie?
So to kind of give you an idea, and overall, the overlay district is on top of the underlying zoning requirements. So the underlying zoning requirements, we all know, we have an accepted materials palette, right? Well, the overlay district says we have a specific type of material that we want on 27th Street and in the regional retail overlay district, and that's glass, brick, and masonry. And that's it. So anything other than glass, brick, and masonry is an exception. And you'll recall that we just recently had a zoning text amendment to allow the Plan Commission a little bit of flexibility to have these developments come in and have the Plan Commission say, you know what, our standards are a bit too strict. We will accept an alternative here if you go above and beyond in another location, in another area on your plans that we find acceptable. So that's part of the modification of standards that we're talking about here. So again, the metal is not allowed in the regional retail or 27th Street overlay district.
Thank you.
Pat?
I don't know if I'm completely ready yet, but I guess in response to that, Carrie, so we have the latitude based on somewhat the evolution or lack thereof of 27th Street from what we were presented 10 or 12 years ago. It was when some of these things were adopted to allow some of these exceptions to the building itself. That being said, as I read through all the different staff notes, which I really appreciate making it easier for us, there seems to be some low-hanging fruit that we'll be able to work through. You got the two-story building, or lack thereof. It seems to be the biggest, one of the bigger issues. Am I correct there, or?
Well, let me just make a point to clarify my previous statement. When I said brick, stone, or masonry, it's actually, I'm reading the code here, brick, stone, terracotta. So if that's what's acceptable for primary building materials in the overlay district. So the modification of standards language says that you can modify the building design standards by a three-quarter majority vote of the plan commissioners, only if supplemental design elements or improvements are incorporated into the project over and above those which are otherwise required, which compensate for the modification of the particular standard, and then it goes into what's required of the applicant to apply for that. So I'm not sure that the two-story appearance of the building is necessarily the biggest concern. I would argue that we do have more of a two-story appearance to the building now. It is more of a 1.5 story. So while the entire building isn't two-story, I would say that we're probably more than a majority toward meeting that standard than we are not meeting that standard. I think there are other concerns besides that look that would be, I guess, in my opinion, higher on the priority list.
Keep reading. Thank you.
Oh,
Ollie?
okay. Yeah, this is kind of odd here. As most of you know, I retired from General Motors, okay? So here we are talking about brand standards, et cetera. I just want to make it clear that that's not going to affect any long-term decision that I make, okay? Just be aware, okay? Now I'll ask my questions, okay? Number one, on page 6 of 9, Carrie, it does say that staff notes that the west or front facade features are only extended for approximately 30 feet, 8¼ inches on the north and south facades. And I guess you're asking, does that meet our requirements from, to be, seen from all sides all the way? Or are you asking us to say, is that adequate?
I'm asking the Plan Commission to make that determination.
Okay, which drawing would that show up on here?
So what we're talking about here, for all sides of the building shall be designed with details that complement the front facade. The front facade is the entrance. So that actually has the metal panels and it has the GMC logo with the entry. And then it has the windows that wrap around, the display windows that wrap around. That's that 30 feet that I say extends onto those two elevations. Beyond that, then we turn into a different materials palette, which is primarily the concrete panel, the precast panel. So it's just a matter of, does the Plan Commission feel that the change in materials is not going against code? And secondly, do you feel that the change in somewhat of the architectural style is still in keeping with the front facade to meet that portion of the code? I'm throwing it out to the Plan Commission.
Okay, if we are in agreement with that, then would we need our normal 3/4, of these people here that have voted for it at some point?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other thing is more or less this traffic impact study. They talk about having it, and then we've got listed, although this is listed as a requirement in the overlay district, the engineering department has stated that a traffic impact analysis is not required for the development. I was just wondering how that, how you came about with that decision. Is that up to you, Brian? Or your answer?
The traffic impact analysis will be based on the volume of cars coming in and out of here. Dealership is going to have a lot less traffic than a retail store that would be on that corner, that would generate a lot of traffic, that would cause traffic concerns for that intersection. So we don't have a concern as traffic related with this development. So
Okay,
a
okay,
TIA
it's
is
kind
not
of
needed.
different than some subdivision where you got cars driving through and everything. Okay.
Yes.
That's understandable. Thank you. Okay.
Dawn?
Okay, I try to listen as closely as I can about the materials. And as far as I can tell, the materials that you have on this building none are acceptable.
According to the overlay district,
Right.
which is very strict, that is true. It doesn't necessarily mean that this materials palette is completely prohibited by code. It's the overlay districts that are incredibly prescriptive.
Right.
So yes, that is a correct
Okay,
statement.
so we are not, other than the glazing probably, right?
Probably, yes.
And the problem I have is voting on this if we don't see the materials. I mean, if these aren't materials,
You're not voting,
We're not
you're
voting
just
tonight.
providing direction to the applicant.
okay,
come
for
back.
so
to work
we
with
need
staff.
we need to see these items because I don't know what a metal panel that's painted white necessarily would look like. As well as on another point, the idea that the design goes, around all four sides. I think there's two sides that really don't hold that design, don't hold that black bar around it, that maybe could use some more, more of a creative look on the backside of the building so that all four sides match each other. But I guess I need to see what those might look like before I would vote.
Yeah.
To Dawn's point, I guess my concern is that the overlay district restrictions that are making this stricter, I don't know if it applies as much as when we put that in at some point for this particular property as I look at it. When I look at a non-high traffic use on that corner with what else is going on and potentially to the north on 27th Street and up, or south rather, with IKEA and everything else that's there. It's non-traffic. I'm not as concerned about the materials once we see them and can get comfortable with it meeting that overlay district, because personally I feel that district hasn't quite evolved the way we thought it was at that point. In this particular property, I just kind of think it fits. I think we got to make sure that everything, all these sidewalks and the sign front with the car display and those kind of things, we've got to make that work for us, in my opinion. And if we get everything we need there, I'm willing to bend a little bit on the materials of the building if we get the desired look.
I also have a question about the wetlands and the proposed public road going in there. Are we having any problems with the DOT and with the city and any, like the Corps of Engineers and so forth? Are they filling that road in or propose changes to it?
Commissioner Siepert, before I answer that question, I just want to point to the screen that shows an existing GMC dealership. It's not exactly the same design that we're looking at for the proposal tonight, but this gives you an idea of what the metal panel look is in real life. I can try and find another example if this is not satisfactory. But to your question, Commissioner Siepert, there is an acceptable road layout that was approved by DOT, county, and the city many years ago. That's what that's what's being proposed. We've been working with the applicant to make sure that the alignment and everything is correct. Yes, it does cross wetlands, and there will need to be a DNR permit for that wetland fill area. But this has been looked at by, again, those three entities, and also I think it even included Franklin, because the ultimate termination point is at the connection point with Riverwood Drive in Franklin to the north. So that will be the intersection point eventually. At least that's the plan. So there will need to be some additional permitting going forward, but again, it has been reviewed.
Got something, Chris, or no?
No, just with this current view here, honestly, I don't have any objections with this look. I mean, it just seems to fit the corner better than currently what's there to me.
Also, you got something?
Yes. A couple questions about the landscaping and the public connections to sidewalks. Can the applicant provide a little more information about those two things?
I think our consultant, our civil engineer, has been working with staff on making sure we meet all landscaping requirements. We have zero intention of really looking for any modifications there. So whatever we've got to do to make those modifications to meet whatever percentage needs to be green space and do those things, we've done that. I think our consultants have talked. My only concern is we don't necessarily want trees that are fruit bearing, because those don't do well for cars or things like that. But other than that, as long as the code doesn't prohibit that, then there'd be no exceptions that I could see that we'd be requesting.
Okay. And was that the identification, Carrie, in our notes, just to make sure trees are kind of blocking the view in certain areas?
Could you please point out the page number that you're on and those?
Yes. Page 4, section 17.0329B6A.
So the requirement is for street trees, and street trees are in addition to any other trees that would be required on the property. So one of the issues would be making sure that that public road has the appropriate street trees, which we've been working on to make sure that happens. The street trees that would be along 27th Street, I don't have clear knowledge as to whether or not those have been put in by DOT. I don't think they have. So there is still a requirement for street trees to be put on property owners' property, regardless of whether there are trees there now. This does not show trees on the street side, so that would be something that would be a condition or something that the Plan Commission should give some direction to. There are trees that are pulled back from the street a little bit. So they're, and then also along Rawson Avenue, they're not right along Rawson, they're pulled back. So it's a consideration for the Plan Commission to determine whether or not, and this is an old landscape plan because it's not showing the current layout for the road. It would be up to the Plan Commission to make sure that if the proposal with the landscaping shown is insufficient, that's not the right word. If it's in compliance, sufficient compliance, although that's not the right term that I want to use, but anyway, if it's okay.
To that-
Substantially in conformance, that's what I was looking for.
to your point, we've taken note of we're trying to achieve there. So if you come back for a vote, we're hoping that it's something that we're looking at. I guess right below that area on the same page, Carrie, was where I saw the public sidewalks where it says we don't have access correctly, or I don't see where you're working with the applicant on correcting that, page 4 at the bottom.
Okay, so there's no direct public connections to the sidewalks that are existing, and that would be with pedestrian ways. And that's again, something that we would be talking about with site circulation. We're not necessarily saying that we should have, a whole bunch of connection points to the sidewalks everywhere, but, with future connection points that would happen with development possibly to the north, we'd be looking for that connectivity. So if there would be a way, and possibly with the future public street, there would be a connection point for the sidewalk there. The other thing that we could be considering would be a connection point off of 27th Street, because that would be more likely to where the access would be rather than Rawson. But again, that's a consideration. And just overall site circulation. Obviously, with this being a car dealership where people would be driving more often than not to visit, there's going to be a lot of vehicular traffic. But the consideration for pedestrian traffic within the site itself is something that should be considered. We're looking at pedestrian safety for customers too. So whether that be through painted crosswalks, if there's a pedestrian way that's kind of isolated from the travel way, these are things that we can discuss about how to achieve those goals.
I guess my point, just to make that sure to the applicant, that's an area that if there's some trade-offs of building materials and some other things, we want that site plan to be tight.
Go ahead, Wally.
Very quickly, you showed 2 cul-de-sacs here. I understand the one in the upper right-hand corner, that's the street that may, ultimately go through. But the one on the lower right or left, I'm sorry, which is adjacent to where that building hopefully you will get and will be torn down. What is the purpose of that cul-de-sac? I mean, what does it serve? There's parking there, but
Actually, if you read the report, engineering would like to see that whole frontage road go away. So, Brian, do you have any input into that?
The layout just doesn't make sense to me, so if you can explain what that's for or why that's there. Definitely, it seems like a big wasted chunk of asphalt.
Yeah.
If it could be incorporated into the overall parking field instead of a big turnaround, or what's the logic behind that?
I think the logic for our civil engineer was to have a turnaround spot if someone came down that way. To do that, I mean, I personally am more than fine. And I kind of got the impression that he thought that would be more appealing to you guys. So if it's not, then I'm happy to make that go away. And if we even turned it into more green space, then that's more than fine with me. So.
Need to back up a minute. If you want to keep that frontage on Rawson,
right,
then the cul-de-sac is needed for the fire department turnaround.
Okay.
That's the reason behind that this way. But the logic behind why we're just having one row of cars out here, that seems like a huge expense and a big cul-de-sac for, what do you got there? Maybe 15 parking spaces?
It's about gaining display. I mean, it really is. It's right. We'll have new cars or used cars parked there for display.
No, I think the discussion all went onto that Riverton entrance. And we didn't want to get closer up to the light on 27th. So they wanted one entrance in instead of 2. And that made the frontage road necessary, if I remember correctly.
There is only one access point on 27th Street and on Rawson.
Yes. And it didn't have to be that far back, but that's what we chose to incorporate in case Riverton ever went through, which then made the frontage road necessary, if I remember correctly.
Right. The access was originally farther to the west. I think the one that was originally slated. And in a previous meeting last summer, The discussion was because there was also a request for us to put an easement where that current cul-de-sac is on the far east side of the property. It just didn't make sense to have an entrance as well as that easement for the
Everything
cul-de-sac,
east.
so we just moved put in a frontage road. So there weren't two, because there probably wouldn't be enough separation between the two.
Is there a different layout for your parking lot that would incorporate all that as one parking lot to eliminate that cul-de-sac?
I don't see that we would have an issue extending the parking lot further towards Rawson. But we would want to get display as close to Rawson as possible.
For an example, if it's size-wise and constraints that you're looking at, say like the east 2 rows of parking goes away, that gets incorporated into the stuff on Rawson, and that parking lot gets turned around a little bit. You get rid of the cul-de-sac, and then this becomes an access road. If it's still getting through the site with travel lanes, I believe fire is okay. We wouldn't need the cul-de-sac there, and maybe we don't have such a dead space over there.
Chopping the cul-de-sac, it's squaring the parking lot, letting them keep it close to Rawson for display.
Yes.
I'd be more than fine with that.
I mean,
I thought you would.
You know, this is really to give you direction. I guess the direction would be lose that cul-de-sac.
So, I mean, if you guys are okay, man, we'd be happy to square that off, have that display along that south side, and then, you know, if we have to put additional landscaping, say, because that would also probably give us a second row of potential parking and display to put landscaping
Just keep
in there.
in mind our fire department has to turn around there, correct, Mike?
Through it.
Maybe you can kind of shed a little better direction to this.
Mike Russick, Fire Department. It's just a matter of any time you have essentially a dead-end road, there needs to be a fire department approved turnaround at the end of that roadway. This was one concept that came up. I wish everyone made a cul-de-sac that large for a turnaround. That helps us quite a bit. But we're open to a variety of ways of turning our apparatus. It can be a Y turn, any type of turn that fits with the design. So we have flexibility with that. But once you start putting these dead-end roads in place, we need turnarounds there.
Could you possibly, this is kind of strange, but almost take the cul-de-sac and put it in the middle where the T is and feed into the lot, and your turnaround would be in the middle?
I don't have an issue with that if that works for the fire department.
But,
So almost like a traffic circle without a middle.
yeah, but traffic circle might be,
No, I'm saying, but we would have a middle there. It would just
yeah.
be, so a full
It
turnaround.
would
could
really
occur.
depend on the fire trucks getting through there. I guess I'm talking about a roundabout.
You're just moving more of the parking space over by the road. He gets his display, and you take that whole
Thing out.
thing out and give us enough room in the back, which would open up.
Okay.
Okay, as long as I got the floor, we kind of covered the road. Everybody kind of covered the things I was talking about. I had the second story. This is kind of our first crack on 27th Street. So unfortunately, you're the first guy through, so you're the guinea pig. We do have the overlay plan, and we worked pretty hard on it to have the aesthetics nice for 27th Street. The economy's since changed when we laid that out, not to say we want to compromise and just throw anything up there. But the other thing different to this is we've never really dealt with a car dealership before in the city of Oak Creek. This is a little bit new territory, not that our staff can't handle that, but it's a little different concept. It's less building and more lot. So, you know, the two-story thing, it's on a prominent corner. We want this building to really be a jewel to kick off our 27th Street. I think some of the other commissioners stated it as you look at the building. They showed Mike Juno. I do go by there frequently. Pretty nice looking building from the front. You never access Mike Juno from the Unfortunately, this building has side views from probably 3 directions out of the 4. You'll see all those sides. So I think the white element has to be broken up. I think the quality of the panels really has to be assessed, so they don't rust, deteriorate. I don't know if they're iodized or what the deal is.
Mayor, I can say that I have a gentleman here with me from General Motors that helps with dealers and their site plans and all that. And I think he could probably attest to the fact that, the site plans used all over the country in all kinds of different climates. Obviously Mike Gino has it in Brookfield, so it's the same climate. And that I would guess that the materials that they've required and those things, because they don't want that look either. It obviously doesn't do them any justice as the manufacturer for our building to look oxidized or for there to be any rust or for it not to look. The idea is for it to look luxurious. So if it doesn't look that way, it doesn't do any of us any good. So,
maybe the black stripe has to be incorporated around the building. Something.
One of the things I've done with another project is we've taken almost like blocks in between the windows, and it was a Honda facility that's actually in Kenosha and put like square blocks in between the windows that were blue, because that's kind of the Honda concept is white and blue. So we could look at doing something between the windows that was maybe like big black squares in between that. So didn't look like a stripe maybe all around the building, but it kind of broke up the white along the precast concrete in addition to the windows, because I think it's probably a good looking accent anyway. So that's something that we could do if that was favorable.
I have the height we kind of addressed. Carrie, you felt a little better about what they did with the parapet to kind of raise the level of it.
Yeah, I was actually very, very happy with the fact that the parapet was raised to hide the rooftop mechanicals rather than having the multiple corrugated metal screens, so I really appreciated that.
Are we at the 30% green space even without playing with the cul-de-sac?
That's something that the Plan Commission needs to also understand. There's a large area that is around the proposed stormwater ponds that is proposed to be native prairie. We've had a couple of conversations with the landscape architects stating that the use of native prairie seed requires council approval, and the reason it requires council approval is because that's going to be native forever once that approval gets made. If they don't wish to have that, then we would be talking about using something other than prairie seed. I'm going to try and zoom in here so that we can get a better idea of what we're talking about here. Obviously, there's going to be a portion of the property that isn't developed at all. It'll remain green space and wetlands because it's east of the road, the proposed public road. So that'll be incorporated into the overall 30% open space. But the large use of the native prairie seed is something that the Plan Commission really needs to consider about the landscaping coverage requirements. It will still be green space per se, but whether or not it really meets the letter of the landscape code is a little bit up for grabs there. It's a long-winded way of saying, yes, I believe we can get there. We're probably close, but there might be some tweaks that would be required.
Regarding prairie grass, it has been used. I think we used it around here, didn't we, Pete? Some of these prairie plants, and I know we've used it in some of the parks.
Yeah, we have used prairie plants in our parks. Yes.
Been pretty successful for the most part, hasn't it?
For the most part, yeah. There's probably one on Shepherd Prairie that is more of a grass prairie than flowers and stuff like that, which we're trying to do more in our parks.
I'm not a landscape person, but isn't that what the Northwestern Mutual look? Is that prairie or that on 27th Street? Is that what we're referring to?
Well, there's wildflowers there too, but I think the issue is this isn't going to necessarily look like, it's not going to look like a manicured lawn. It's not going to be what would normally, it's not going to look like it does now. It's something that would be a little bit different, and I think there's a maintenance requirement of no more than a foot. So it would still have to be maintained in that state, but I guess the real issue here is the use of that native prairie area as designated by the council, and whether or not that's going to be a future development deterrent if they're looking to do something else in this area in the future. So we're talking, once it goes to council for this use, it can't change. They can't put cars there and have overflow parking and all that stuff in the future. So that's really kind of a consideration for the applicant, as well as whether or not the Plan Commission feels that there might be some other ways of possibly meeting the landscape requirements here.
Just shifting back to the metal panels and the stand-up concrete panels. The front of the building with the GM, the glazing, that whole top parapet's going to be metal panel, correct? Am I looking at this correctly? So I'm looking at the northwest picture. So everything with the black stripe would be black panel. Everything behind it would be precast concrete panel. That would all be metal panel. I guess my question is, where's the stand-up precast?
The precast is, here, let me bring up the elevations for you. So this is the north elevation. That's part of that entry facade.
Mhm.
This is metal panel. This is all metal panel. Yes, behind that is the precast. I think this is even,
Metal panel.
yeah, that's metal panel as well.
Onto the precast.
Right. Well, that's the service center. The
Okay.
service
Oh,
center
yeah.
is, yeah. So
Okay.
that's precast, but then everything in behind that is precast.
Okay.
So we've got that on the north elevation, and then if we go up to the south elevation, you can see that this is all precast here, but the metal panel is extending for about half the building or so. So this is all metal panel here, and then precast starts about
For the service center, basically.
for the other.
Anything in the service center
Yeah.
is precast. The front showroom will be metal panel.
Essentially, yes.
The car wash will be
The car wash is in the back, so that's all precast.
That's all precast.
Yep. So this is what would be seen from the east. This is all precast.
Gotcha.
And then what would be seen from the west? That's all metal. Metal and glass.
Right, which is
This is the view from 27th Street.
exactly, and then that's probably the most important view you have of the entire facility is on 27th. The second being Rawson Avenue. In my opinion. So again, I think it, if you carry the black stripe through somewhere, I think Pat made a really good point. As we get more comfortable with these building materials, it really depends on the look of the building. If you compare it to Mike Juno, it is not a bad looking building. As far as, I mean, it's a car dealership. No offense, but they want to show their product. All the commercial, they want it clean. They want it bright. They want these things appealing. So from that regard, I don't think it's too bad. What's the showroom space? Is that typical, or is it smaller than most dealerships?
It's not smaller than most dealerships. It's actually slightly larger than what the requirement is for a dealership that would sell the amount of cars that we expect to sell. And then we've made the service area a little bit bigger, anticipating that that's going to be a key part of our business.
Anybody else?
Yes, I have
Going
a couple
forward?
questions.
Jocelyn?
Okay, can you provide just an overview of the artwork? I'm trying to understand where this goes and what it's for.
Say that again?
For the artwork?
The artwork.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah, the last page.
So
What is its purpose?
These are actually 27th Street improvements. These are not proposed by the applicant. These are things that are going in as part of the city agreement with Franklin, with Wisdot, and I think with the county as well. So these are 27th Street beautification pieces. They're already going in. Some of them are already up, and it's right on the corner. So the reason that I've included these is because one of the proposals was to have something, and this is kind of a first stab at the issue here, for proposing some kind of a signage or gateway, some kind of improvement that would be in support of the modification requests. You know, there are some issues, and we can work through them. Landscaping would be more preferred. The signage is something that I think we need to definitely separate out, and that's also going to be a little bit of an issue because the signage that is already up is quite large and it's right on the corner. So it kind of makes this area a little bit more difficult to deal with in terms of signage placement because we already have signage on that corner on that same property. And also, we're looking at a property that the applicant doesn't control yet. So that is still an issue. And while we definitely recognize and appreciate that the parcel is something that they definitely want to acquire, how far in the future is that going to be? What if the deal falls through? These are all concerns that we have with approving something that's not on controlled property.
Thank you. Okay, do you got anything else? If not, we're going to start to wrap it up and give him some direction.
One
'Cause-
additional thing, I know one of the applicants was concerned about drainage. Can you provide us a little more information?
Very
about
good.
What I can say is that regarding drainage, I know our civil engineer is working with staff to make sure that we meet all storm drainage requirements and all of that to, we have no intention of being a bad neighbor to any of our neighbors, so we're not looking to.
Will there be a buffer to your north?
Not much of one.
That was great she brought it up because quite frankly, I forgot. To the north, is there landscaping? Is there trees?
This is an older landscape plan. This hasn't been updated with the layout and everything like that. If we're looking to put in a landscape buffer, we would have to have the applicant propose something a little bit more dense along that side. We'd be probably looking for something like evergreens on that side, and we would have to look at placement, whether or not there's enough distance between what we have shown here and the property line.
We actually made an offer.
Okay. You guys can talk afterwards. Anyways, okay, let's start kind of getting down to some direction for Mr. Cousins.
I guess the first direction, just to wrap up that last piece, having some type of talk to the neighbors to that side, because if a buffer makes sense or any other type of arrangements, you might want to just take that into consideration.
Okay. And obviously the drainage, continue working. We want to make sure that we don't have any water issues going forward. Cul-de-sac, we kind of took that one apart. We need further work on the cul-de-sac.
Not on the cul-de-sac.
Not on the cul-de-sac, but
Yeah. Redesign, I think it'll be better for
the area with the road. Regarding the building, the materials. Now, again, we didn't have a look at them. I think it comes down to the design, and I think I would put my trust into our planning commission. To me, that building from Rawson has to be a little more appealing than the white walls. I know you've added some things. Collaboratively, I don't know, whatever you did with the Honda dealer, if you put in glass block, something along those lines. I don't know, but just in my opinion, I think the Rawson Avenue side, which is the south side, would need to be dressier. I'll allow the rest of the commission to weigh in while I'm thinking of other things. How's that?
I would love to see some samples of the products that you plan to put on the building.
Okay.
Is there, I know it's a flagship building, and obviously it very much resembles the one on Capitol Drive at Mike Juno. Is there any way to incorporate stone into this?
One of the things that we're concerned about in doing that is it starts making the project very cost prohibitive, as opposed to the way that it would be set up now, and creates a business model problem for us. And that's kind of why we've been asking for the exception and really trying to work with staff on what things we can do.
I know, like I say, it's a bummer being first because we're going to set the bar, and we want that bar set very high for this. So, Carrie, do you have anything that's glaring that we're missing, standing out off the top of your head? I mean, you're going to continue to work with staff, and our staff is very good at at really understanding the overlays as well as our own codes and where they blend. So I do have a lot of trust that they can guide us a lot better than us trying to get a handle on this in 20 minutes of talking.
I think one of the things that we also need to have some clarification on is the access and whether or not WISDOT and the county have had a chance to review your proposed plans and provide any approvals or permits or reviews of the plans. We need to make sure that we have that pretty much buttoned up. We can certainly continue to work on the aesthetics and, you know, the tightening up the site plans and making the modifications that we've talked about tonight. If I'm understanding from the conversations that the Plan Commission has had thus far, it's not necessarily the building materials per se that are an issue, but it's making sure that those materials are durable, that they're quality materials, that they might have some aesthetic changes to some of the elevations, and also incorporating more landscaping to kind of make that building a little bit more appealing to the neighbors surrounding.
Greg, anything?
Well, I think that's the big concern when I reached out to some people in the district. Number one was the traffic, but that was kind of addressed. And number two was that being looked at, and even with the drawing of the gateway to Oak Creek with the signage, their concern was, do we really want a big white building as kind of our gateway to Oak Creek? So anything that can be done to break up the white, just solid walls would be great from pretty much everybody I've heard from or presented this to in the district.
And I don't want to put any words in the plan commissioner's mouths or try and do any kind of design work on the floor, but as far as the proposal for that gateway signage on the south, I mean, we're going to need to do some tweaks to that, but what is the plan commission's thought on just that kind of proposal for the modification of standards as going above and beyond? Would the plan commission rather see something else? Is there anything that you're thinking of that would enhance the property, maybe not necessarily being on the property to be acquired at this point, looking for some direction on the over and above?
Go ahead,
You can
Pat.
start with that north border with the neighbors. If something has to be done there that makes it work or has another long-term solution. I don't really have a problem with it being in that signage area that to be acquired or something. I don't know what else you're going to do with that. It's a matter of what the quality, what it looks like, what that finished product
And
is.
we just kind of,
So conceptually, I'm okay with it. I think we really got to look at it, what it's gonna be, because that could, to Greg's point, that if that was the right element up there, it might take a little bit away from the big white building.
and so
If done
obviously,
right.
for me, it was the first time I saw some of the other signage that was going to go on 27th Street in the meetings and all that. So if we had to design something that really kind of complemented that and or looked exactly like that for that corner, then we're open to making that work. I mean, we didn't have anything to work with, so we just kind of took a stab and threw something together on it.
I personally think whatever you put there, it's probably the best entranceway into Oak Creek. And the reason I say that is because 27th Street probably houses more traffic than anybody coming or going. It looks directly across to a neighbor. I know we also have that going on at College and Howell. We're trying to dress that up, but I do believe this being on 27th is probably a little higher profile and should be over and above what we'd normally do. So whether it's the flagpoles or whatever, I would really want to make a statement on 27th Street because this is our flagship. Is that it, Wally?
Yeah, that's it. I think we hit it pretty good.
Yeah, so I hope that's enough to go on.
It is.
Going forward. Carrie, I hope we gave you enough work.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, guys.
Would you like to say something, ma'am, before we wrap it up, or Ed? Oh, you're welcome. Come on up. Either way, you're welcome to.
How many main entrances are there going to be? 27th Street and Rawson Avenue?
Well, they're trying to negotiate with the state, but for sure off of Rawson, correct? They will enter off
Main entrance will be off of Rawson?
There's one entrance off of 27th Street. That'll be a shorter drive because that's where the building is. And then there's one access off of Rawson, which is where the proposed public road is going to be, the future public road.
I
You're
thought they
talking
were
two-
still working on.
Well, I mean, it has to all be approved anyway
Okay.
because it's access that's controlled by a different entity. We can't just say, go ahead,
Yeah.
you're ready to
Okay.
go. They
Because it's
still need to
close
have
to
that
Rawson.
approval.
27th Street there. It's close to Rawson. You start putting an entrance in, you know what I'm talking about.
The state will determine that.
Oh. But they're proposing two entrances, one off of 27th Street and one off of Rawson, both?
Looking at, yeah.
Correct.
Oh, boy.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any buffer there between my property and the dealership? Is there gonna be any buffer there?
They're gonna work
That's what we're
towards
gonna look at,
something.
yeah.
So
Pardon?
we gave them direction to work towards that.
Do I get a chance to look at that then too?
You'll
Next
see
time.
you'll see it again.
When he comes
Not,
back.
not when it's up.
No, you'll see it. You'll see it. It'll come back through here again.
That's what it's-
This has not been approved yet. They're going back to the drawing board and they're going to bring it back one more time.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Mary Jo Zielinski, 2046 West Rawson Avenue. I want to really thank the commission for considering like the different viewpoints so that we're not looking at a big face of concrete. And also I appreciate that there is going to be a buffer of green space. The one thing that I didn't hear mentioned that is just a concern for us in the neighborhood is relating to sound and light pollution. Because obviously it's a dealership, they're going to want to have lights on at night to prevent theft and for sales of cars. And then also, you know, right now there's a field, like we get a lot of noise from 27th, but we're not getting like announcements or music playing or things. And so just kind of what is being considered to make sure that that's not drastically reducing the light and sound in our neighborhood and in our backyards at night.
Yeah, just very quickly, they'll have to meet all lighting codes. So when it comes to pole lighting, there'll be cut off shades so the light doesn't stray over to your property and you get the what's called light pollution. So there'll be cut-offs that are strictly for their parking lot. As far as the sounds go of anything, it'll fall within their working hours. So as far as outdoor speakers, that's something we would address in conditions and restrictions if they have them. Oh, you got to come up to the mic, Jerry.
We don't currently use outdoor speakers at our Honda facility, so I don't see a situation where we'd use them at this facility either.
Carrie, I'm sorry I cut you off. Did you have something? No.
No, I was just going to mention what the hours of operation are, but the hours of operation are general hours. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be operating hours, if I can make that distinction. In other words, there would be people on property between 6 and possibly 10 p.m. It doesn't necessarily mean that the dealership or the service center is going to be open that late. It's just that's when people might be on site.
And again, that would come back through in conditions and restrictions. Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Steve Santoro, 2124 West Cedar. I live in that professed hidden little subdivision you love back there.
It's a nice little
I love it
street.
too. Been there 20 years. And my concern is with Rawson Avenue and the entrance on Rawson. My wife was rear-ended about 2 years ago, turning into our subdivision. We enter in off 22nd Street. Okay. She was rear-ended while trying to make a turn through the median. And she hurt her back, hurt her neck, and dang near totaled the car from someone who was texting or not paying attention to what they were doing. Every day is a struggle for us to get out of 22nd Street onto Rawson Avenue or turn and go east on Rawson. The cars go 60 miles an hour on Rawson Avenue. If you're going to have an entrance into this dealership on Rawson, you're going to have to do something with the speed limit. And you're going to have to patrol that, check it out, because someone turning into this dealership off of Rawson is going to be rear-ended like my wife and may not be that fortunate.
Is there a proposed, maybe it is for Brian, is there a proposed left turn lane there to be carved out?
We haven't got that far with the design yet, but
Would we do a traffic impact analysis for that area?
no.
But it's farther up from the proposed entrance.
Right.
It wasn't incorporated in the 27th Street project plans, so we haven't dug into it that far yet for this alignment.
It's a huge concern because I come from 20th Street or from the freeway to try and turn right into my subdivision on 22nd, and I am watching my rearview mirror the entire time to make sure some idiot isn't texting is going to ram into me, just making a turn, and that doesn't even count for crossing traffic on Ross. So it's a huge concern, and the city could have some problems with that if they approve it. So.
Well, thank you. And yeah, and those are, I don't want to make light of it, but unforeseen consequences.
Yeah, I'm
as
not
we do these things.
not specifically about my wife's situation, but I can use that as a specific example. But it could happen again really easily with that. That right lane is like a passing lane on a freeway.
No, you're right.
I'd like to see a lot more patrol there just to keep that safer. And then some of my other questions were answered with the paging and lights. So as long as the paging, they don't have a system, that's great.
All right. Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, come on.
Arden, which item you on? This one? Apparently. Go ahead, Arden.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I am puzzled because in 2000, Brager Chevrolet was going to put an expanded quarter-mile long dealership, which was turned down by the Plant Commission. How many of you were on the Plant Commission at that time?
Not me. I'm only kidding you, Arden, you know that.
There's no long-term memory. Apparently, that has been trash canned. That is the reason why Brager went out of business, because Oak Creek did not allow 27th Street to become used car alley, new car. So all you have is cars looking out at you that are for sale. This is not what we planned for 27th Street at that time. Now, this proposal goes right back 20 years ago now, and I want you to seriously consider, because that's the reason why we got together with Franklin to make this 27th Street a scenic shopping area, just like they have done in the city of Milwaukee now, north of the airport, somewhat north. Anyway, I just want to remind everybody that Brager Chevrolet wanted to take over a quarter of a block 20 years ago, and it was turned down, and we worked with Franklin to have this a scenic walkway, pathway, all kinds of items that are put into the corners, and now I'm flabbergasted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dagner. Okay, I think we've provided some direction, and we will we'll hold that one, and we will move on.
Okay.
Where are we at? Item 5D, Agility Properties for a conditional use permit for a dog training, grooming, daycare at 400 West Rawson. Carrie.
This is a request for a conditional use permit for an indoor dog training facility with no outdoor activities, storage, or display of merchandise at the multi-tenant manufacturing industrial building at 400 West Rawson Avenue. This would be occupied by 2 of the tenant spaces in that building. The applicant wishes to provide group and private lesson classes, which would have about 6 to 10 dogs per class. 10 is the max. Each class is held once a week, and pet owners must remain on site at all times with their pets. So this is not something that will be a drop-off situation. There's no housing, there's no boarding, there's no sale of pets on the location. Dogs must be on leash when entering and exiting the building. There is going to be a dog waste system in a pet relief area on the north and a grassy area that has been approved by the landowner. Cleanup is going to be the responsibility of the pet owner, and it will be monitored by the applicant, the owner of the business. Proposed hours are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. This was expanded from what the original request was, and it just gives a little bit more flexibility to allow for, class times to extend into a little bit of conversation. Parking situation for the multi-tenant building. Suites are assigned a certain number of parking spaces in the lease, so there are 12 that are assigned to this applicant. Code does not actually specify parking requirements for dog training facilities, and the requirements for animal hospitals are not applicable to this proposal because there are no vet facilities on location. So it would be per doctor, and that doesn't work. So the closest that we can apply here is for commercial and recreational uses, which would be 1 stall for every 4 patrons and 1 stall per employee at peak shift. So there's only 1 employee, and based on the maximum class size, a total of 11 stalls would be required, and the lease provides 12. So staff considers that requirement fulfilled. The conditions and restrictions that are proposed tonight, I'd like to go through just a couple of areas with the Plan Commission, since this is a little bit of a new use. Page 2 of 7, item 3A, parking for the project shall be provided in accordance with section 170403J4, and that's allowing for the leased spaces based on the general requirements for commercial and recreational uses. Under 5A, landscaping, any changes to the site or landscaping shall require prior review and approval by the Plan Commission. It's basically saying just if anything changes, the Plan Commission needs to review it because it is an existing multi-tenant facility, and it wouldn't necessarily be on the applicant to do so. On page 5 of 7, under item 7, building and parking setbacks, just reiterating what the requirements are in that district. There is no proposal for amending the building at this time. Page 6 of 7, under 8, maintenance and operation. C, there shall be no outdoor storage or display of merchandise. None has been proposed. 8D, no outdoor play area is included as part of this conditional use permit. Future outdoor play areas shall require review and approval by the Plan Commission. Again, no outdoor space is being requested at this time. No dogs shall be boarded or provided kennel service. None has been requested. Pet waste removal and disposal shall be the responsibility of the pet owner and the business owner. This is basically making clear that everybody is responsible except for the landowner. That would be an ultimate requirement if there is a problem. Hours of operation shall be Monday through Friday between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. and Saturday through Sunday between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. Under 10, permitted uses, all permitted uses in the M1 Manufacturing Zoning District, and 1 indoor dog training facility with no outdoor storage or display. If the Plan Commission is comfortable with these conditions and restrictions, staff's recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit and adopts the conditions and restrictions for the conditional use permit allowing a dog training, grooming, or dog daycare facility on the property at 400 West Rawson Avenue after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Carrie. We do have the applicant wishing to come up and speak. Judy Fisher, welcome. Name and address, please.
Judith Fisher, 3443 South 61st Street in Milwaukee. First of all, thank you for the consideration in having me in here. This has been a long haul, but I'm really pleased to be in the city of Oak Creek offering our dog training business. We're calling it my business is Agility Possibilities. So we're doing, of course, agility dog training, but it's going to be a comprehensive dog training learning facility where we have all types of dog training. Personal, one-on-one lessons, workshops, seminars. It's going to be everything that the dog needs to meet its educational and recreational needs. I've been a dog trainer myself for over 45 years. We work with a lot of rescue and shelter dogs, dogs that are out there. Everybody has a dog. You have some issue that comes up, or when you first get them, you need help with. This is what we're there for. So I guess at that time, that's all I needed to say. If anybody had any questions about what we were going to be doing in the facility, it was going to be all indoors. We want to keep it safe. We want everybody, the dogs and the owners, everything is going to be self-contained.
Commissioners, we kind of went over this, I think, 2 weeks ago, so.
The only thing I just wanted to ask, I know, Carrie, you did extend the hours on Saturday and Sunday. They requested from 5 till 5 p.m. You went to 7 p.m. Was that based on discussion with Julie, or just that we decided it would be helpful?
I felt it would be helpful. It's in a manufacturing district. There's no residential in the area. I didn't feel it would provide any harm if there was a little extra time.
Okay, that's satisfactory with you?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
No further discussion, motion.
The applicant makes a motion, the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit and adopts the conditions and restrictions for the conditional use permit allowing a dog training / grooming / dog care daycare facility on the property at 400 West Rawson Avenue after a public hearing.
Kuzikowski seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Clark, aye. Kavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Roy.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Good luck and.
Thank you for your consideration.
Item E. Sign review for sports clips. Pete, you're on. You waited a long time. You're on.
I was very patient. Signs, as always, we always have to review those in Drexel Town Square. In this particular case, it's for the tenant space located at 7940 South 6th Street. It's the Sport Clips. Will be the ones that'll be putting up the signage. As always, we have to have Plan Commission approval and review. In your packet, I do have the reference to code, Appendix B, what we use as guidelines for any approval process. The applicant is proposing to install 2 signs, one on the south elevation and one on the north elevation. At this time, no eye-level signs are being proposed, and if any eye-level signs are to be displayed, they will have to come before Plan Commission to get approval for that. The sign itself is 30 inches tall. It has channel letters. You see it's red and white. The one thing I'd like to point out is the haircut sign underneath. It is a push-through acrylic, which is something different than a box cabinet. This is something that we have in Drexel Town Square for Ritz Salon, for the Chocolate Factory. It's just that if you look at other Sport Clips locations, typically they have a box sign underneath with just a film over the front. That's not how it's going to be. It's actually going to be a white backer with the push-through acrylic letters with black vinyl on the haircut. So during the day, it's going to look like a white sign with black lettering, and then at night, the white will not be illuminated, and actually the letters will be illuminated, and they'll actually look white at night. So it's a new, I won't say the new style, but it's definitely something that works within our code. So size-wise, it is compliant. Height-wise, it's compliant, and also in design. I can give you the elevations. You can see the one on the main elevation is the entrance. In Drexel Town Square, we allow 1 wall sign per entrance facade, except for on the outlots, we allow it on special condition facades. And the north elevation in this particular building is a special condition. Therefore, they are allowed to have 2. And so everything does comply with both the master plan for this building as well as the DTS MUPD sign code. Therefore, staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the sign plan submitted by Associate Bank for Suite, not Suite, I got the wrong one here. For Sport Clips
Baseball.
at 7940 South 6th Street. How did that get in there? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Pete. Anything, Commission?
Question. So Pete, can you give a little more information on why the north side is considered a special entry facade?
Because it's an outlot. In the part of the Drexel Town Square, it was identified that any buildings that are facing Drexel Avenue or Howell Avenue or even 6th Street would be considered a special condition facade and would be allowed to have additional wall sign.
Thank you.
else?
Pete, under this, on the drawing here, you know, on the last page, when I read what's going to be, it says a white LED lighting system. You know, we've been talking about the LED lights being so doggone bright. Are they going to, I mean, is it going to look good here? I mean, the way it's going to go?
Yeah, it'll be internally illuminated wall sign, so it's not like the bare LED lights that we see in the windows that we've talked about in the
that's what I'm
past.
concerned.
It's not going to be that way. It's going to look the same as when it was illuminated with fluorescent light bulbs.
Yeah.
It's just, I always include that it's an LED illumination.
Thank you.
All right, motion.
Seifert moves that the planning commission approve the signed plan submitted by Associated Banks for Suite 102 of the building at 7940 South 6th Street.
Have to be, is that correct? It's not associated. Sport Clips.
Sport Clip, sorry, I had to misprint, and there you can see
Sorry about it.
Submitted by Sport
Good with that?
I'm a concurring.
Clip. Kuzikowski, second.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Rely.
Lorick, aye. Gavich, aye.
Kuzikowski.
Aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay. 5F, another sign plan submitted by Orange Leaf Yogurt for Orange Leaf Commercial Tenant portion at 160 West Town Square Way. Pete?
Yes, thank you. As you can see that I've been using the same format report that I got caught in my clip and copy and paste victim there. Is for Orange Leaf. Orange Leaf tenant spaces between Potbellies and Five Guys on 160 West Town Square Way. They are proposing one wall sign on their main entrance. Bring that up. It does conform with the master sign plan for this particular site, as well as the DTS MUPDD sign code. It'll be 24 inches in height, 12 and a half feet wide. It'll also have an LED internally illuminated lighting system. So while it's okay, it's not the LED window lights. At this time, they're not proposing any eye-level signs. If they do, they will need to come before Plan Commission for approval of those. Having said that, staff recommends that the Plan Commission approves the sign plan submitted by Orange Leaf Yogurt for Unit 400 of the building at 160 West Town Square Way.
Questions? Nothing on the north at this time, Pete?
Straight and
Nope, I asked the applicant and they said no, they're fine with the one that's being proposed on the main entrance.
Confidence. All right.
Correll moves that the plan commission approves the sign plan submitted by Orange Leaf Yogurt for Unit 400 of the building at 160 West Town Square Way.
Seifert, seconds.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Rely.
Lorick, aye. Gavich, aye.
Kuzikowski.
Aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
5G, it is a sign for Associated Bank at 7940 South 6th Street. Pete?
Yes, so just as like I said before, sign plans that need to be approved and reviewed by Plan Commission as per Appendix B. They'll be looking to install 3 identical signs on this building location, which is the west tenant space of the new white building that's on the corner of 6th and Drexel. They are proposing to have channel lettered signage with the logo, as you can see on the graphic. They'll have one on the north elevation, which is a special condition, on 6th Street, which is also a special condition, and then on the south, which is their entrance facade. So that all complies with code. The height of the sign is 24 inches, which is within the 32-inch height limit for this particular sign plan for this particular development. It'll be 22 3/4 foot by 2 foot overall size for a 45.5 square feet in size. And the one difference that's somewhat unique, I don't know if you had able to visit the site, is that they have a metal accent piece that sticks out. So on 6th Street, the letters will actually be standing on this metal protrusion coming out and not actually attached to the wall, which is acceptable in this particular case. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, since that is something that is not commonly installed in the city of Oak Creek, and it is, as I said before, it is compliant. With that said, the staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the sign plan submitted by Associated Bank for Suite 101 of the building at 7940 South 6th Street.
Anybody? Chauncey?
Can you just share with us all the locations of the different signs?
Sure. In your report here and also up on the screen, I have the site plan for the facility. So we have Drexel, 6th Street. It's the main building. There's going to be on the northwest corner where the red bar is here, and then on the west elevation facing 6th, and then also on the south elevation facing the parking lot. If you've seen it, there's the drive-through that's being installed for the bank. So you'll see one sign as you're coming in onto 6th Street.
So there are total.
There'll be 3
counted
signs.
correctly.
There'll be 3 wall signs, one in the north, one in the west, one in the south. In addition to the sign proposal, they have identified 4 directional signs. They do meet size and they're compliant and don't require necessary approvals for the development.
So all the signs are compliant?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion.
Clerk moves that the Plan Commission approve the sign plan submitted by Associated Bank for Suite 101 of the building at 7940 South 6th Street.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnson, aye.
Clerk, aye. Kevich, aye.
Guzekowski.
Grill, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
5H, rezone for the properties at 1901 and 1941 East Rawson from B4 and A1 to LM1 light manufacturing.
The request is to rezone the properties to LM1 in anticipation of 2 developments. That would be 1 on each lot for a self-service storage facility and a commercial condominium facility. The commercial condominium facility is similar to the recent one that we've reviewed for Storage Shop USA. Existing parcels in the area are zoned for residential, commercial, and agricultural uses. The properties themselves are actually zoned B4 currently, and considering the mix of zoning in the area, staff determined that LM1 was more appropriate than the original request for M1, and the applicant agreed. Both proposals would need conditional use approvals in the future before they could be brought before the Plan Commission for site building and landscaping plans, and each development will be separately owned, therefore they will have separate applications. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the properties at 1901 and 1941 East Rawson Avenue be rezoned from B4 Highway Business and A1 Limited Agricultural to LM1 Light Manufacturing after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. We do have 2 citizens wishing to speak on this. Lonnie, you still with us?
Hello, Mr.
Address,
Mayor,
please.
Commissioners. I'm Lonnie Banning, and I'm the president of the Camelot Trails Condominium Association. I represent 90 homeowners and our board. 12 of the homeowners directly look on or face this lot on the east side at the southeastern end. There are some further questions I think are appropriate to have been answered before I sit and list our concerns, because we do not know what is proposed here. Pictures, that type of thing. We represent 90 homeowners. Our streets are very narrow. We have no sidewalks. So one of the concerns that many of our owners have indicated, first of all, would be anything that might impact our streets. It doesn't appear that it would, but we would like that clarified. The other is light pollution, noise pollution, buffer, questions about anything between the buffer and the backyards of the homes. We already have quite a bit of light pollution in our community from the Piggly Wiggly lights that have been changed to very bright LEDs that are really impacting our yards greatly. We would like to know what type of lights might be going here. What is the total acreage? What is the planned surface? How many buildings? What are the hours? My understanding is that these buildings would be accessible 24 hours a day, is from what we can see from the other developments that are out in Delavan or Delafield and Economwalk, I think, whatever I've seen online. we have, it can greatly impact our community. We have small children. We already seem to be on some path with noise from the airport that we're trying to deal with because they've changed some paths of flight. We'd like some question answered before and see these proposals. There's no reason in this area, we think, that we need to go to any type of manufacturing, light manufacturing or other. Everything there has been B4 or agricultural. It is all service businesses and restaurants, and it's right, this area butts up against the Camelot Park. We just don't understand why this is an area that something like would have to get changed to anything like manufacturing at all. So what are the plans? Do we have pictures and things like you've shown for some of the other proposals so that we could come back up and ask pertinent questions?
No, not yet. Really, this is just a rezone to go from the B4 and the ag to get it.
Well, we're very concerned that this
The
is
light
some,
manufacturing.
you have a lot of M1 and LM1 in the town, in the city already. This has been a nursery up until now.
The light manufacturing, Carrie, do you want to describe some of the uses and some of the reasons we came up with the zoning?
Sure. LM1 is intended to be kind of a bridge between the B4 Highway Business District and the Manufacturing District that we currently have. It is actually a new district. It's meant to serve that gap, providing for some uses in the area that would not necessarily be allowed in the B4 district, but also we didn't feel that there were a lot of uses in the M1 district that would be appropriate, so we came up with this type of smaller district. It does allow for self-service storage facilities, which would be one of the proposals here. It does also allow for some things like research parks, office parks, those kinds of things. We're not talking about heavy manufacturing. The only kind of manufacturing that's allowed in the M1 district is actually more of an assembly. So indoor components that would be put together.
Our restoration?
No, that's not allowed in the M1 district. We don't have a proposal that shows any kind of site layout or anything for these two. Right now, what they're asking for is the rezone, and then the next item is a certified survey map to divide the properties. Usually what happens is whenever a conditional use permit request is put through, we have a site plan, we have some preliminary concept for what the proposal is, because then we do have all of those questions that you brought up answered, and we have conditions and restrictions put on that. It is a little bit of a unique situation that they are separating the rezone from the conditional use permit request, but this is what they propose to do. They will be applying for a conditional use permit for the specific developments separately, but in the future before they can actually proceed.
You have a great many homes on the other side directly across on Rawson, a great many, 90 on this side. This area, the question is, why would you go to any light manufacturing? I don't care if it bridges, I guess the word bridge is actually quite worrisome, because what does it bridge to? From before to what? So, that doesn't answer our question. Why do we need a bridge in this area? We have service areas, we have restaurants, those have all worked out just fine. There is no need, and for something to be accessible 24 hours a day in the backyards of these homes with lights, and there isn't a lot of room there for buffer, so we would certainly be asking for a large buffer area. But when it comes to noise and light and 24-hour access, this is not what has been in that area, and this is a highly dense area.
The property owner requested a change in zoning.
Well, we have 90 homeowners. If we need to, we can give you all the signatures. We are definitely opposed.
It's fine. Appreciate your input. But again, the property owners do, just like in our very first case, they do have a right to
They have a right to ask, but I can give you, I will go around personally. It won't be difficult if you need signatures. I would like to be told that.
Ma'am, I don't need signatures. It's
Okay.
before us tonight for it. So
Okay.
And we have one more speaker. Chris? Is Chris here? Yeah, come on up. Everything for you? Okay. They're all very valid questions, but again, it's really just a rezone and a CSM at this point. Until something's proposed as to what they'll put in, and then you'll be notified, put it that way, if you're within 300 feet. So. Questions from the commission? Pat, anything? I can't, you gotta come up to the mic, ma'am.
What is the procedure that allows you to rezone before knowing what the change, what the new plans entail?
Gary?
Anybody can request that the rezone be, reviewed by the Plan Commission. What they've proposed is a self-storage facility. Yes, we don't have a layout, but we also have a proposal for this commercial condo property. Both of those are proposed uses are allowed in the district for which they're requiring requesting the rezone. So from that perspective, they're requesting something that would be compliant with the rezone request. Again, the conditional use permit usually goes along with that, so that we have more of an accurate picture of what the request is going to be and how it will look. They've chosen to separate it, so this is the procedure for going forward with a rezone. And they would have to go forward with the conditional use permit request as a separate request, but it would have all of the details in it. So it's a unique situation that they haven't combined it, but this is an allowed process.
Well, my sister and I own farmland out in the town of Raymond. We've had people who have wanted to rezone in order to buy some of this farmland. They would never even, the Planning Commission in Racine County would never, and the town of Raymond would never consider anything before knowing what was going to go on to that property. And I ask that you do the same thing.
Again, each community has their own rules.
Well, I'm asking you to do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Oh, please. Name and address, sir.
Paul McBride. I'm with RFP Commercial, 330 East Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm working for the sellers on this as a broker, and we've been trying to sell this for over 2 years. And I've talked to, in the 3-county region where I was working, Waukesha, Milwaukee, and Racine, we've talked to a number of different landscapers. One right down the road, we talked to see if they wanted to buy it. So we really were working the whole retail play out on this strip. And there just wasn't the demand for it. It's just the demand is here right now. The demand is right where we are. And along that strip there wasn't. We worked the Oak Creek Plaza as well. And there's a number of open stores there. It's just right now that's not in the play right now for the retail. And so we've been working it. And this opportunity came along, and the owners want to sell the property, and that's where we are on that.
Thank you for that input, sir. Okay.
Mayor, just clarify, so we rezone it, we split it up, and then they can come back and we have our bite at the apple.
Then they'll come in and they'll have conditions and, they'll have a proposal and we can look at it to see if it fits.
Okay, my name is Russ Beaumont, and we've operated the garden center there some 20 years with a great deal of success. And I've gotten a very close relationship with all the people in the neighborhood, so I talk to them. And one of the things that just completely floors me, I think people come in, oh, my taxes, my God, they're so high, they're so high. And I say, well, how much are you paying? Well, $600, $700. I said, do you realize, and how many children do you have? Well, we have 3. I said, do you realize if for every one of those children, you would be paying $10,000 for each one per month? That's what you'd be paying. Right now, the city is flipping that bill for that. It costs money. So if you want to start eliminating commercial buildings and commercial property that pay out the bulk of the support of these beautiful schools that they have. The schools are incredible. I'm 80 years old, and I remember when I went to school, when I was a 10-year-old kid, it was a dump. The floors creaked, and it was horrible. Today, big swimming pools and tennis courts and everything under the sun. They want all these beautiful things. But these things cost money. They cost us money. And the only way that money's going to come, it's not going to be coming from their $500 or $600 or $700 property bill. That won't even scratch the surface. Sending these kids to school is going to cost the city, and it's going to cost everybody. So when you're going against any kind of development, you're going against saying, hey, look at what they like to live the way we lived in dumpy old schools, all the best facilities, everything modern. It's just unbelievable. Big swimming pools. They're living like kings. But that money, that has to be paid for. Now, any of the commercial developments, like if you have a commercial property, like even I live in West Dallas, but we've been some 20 years working at the garden center. And even over the years that we've been there, I felt that, you know, we don't have no children, so we don't pay, so we don't have, we're not crowding the schools. Most businesses don't have a flock of kids, or they don't have 2-3 kids. When I ask these people, how many children? 3. My God, 3. That's a lot of money. And I am sure they wouldn't want to be paying $10,000 a kid to send them to school. So you know what? We got to have a climate here. You got to have a climate. You got to have commercial property. You can't sit back and say, just eliminate all commercial properties, because then we're going to end up like Franklin. You know how high Franklin taxes are. They have no businesses there, and everybody's hurting there too. They got nothing there. And I think Oak Creek's a great city, and I think they're going on the right track by the way they're going. They've done some beautiful development out there on this whole particular thing, which I was really happy to see happen. And there's a lot of other developments are going up. But no matter what they are, you always have someone say, "Oh, I can't have this because a light is going to flash past my house." Well, then, if you don't like light, you don't like city living, there's a good place to go. Go out into the wilderness. There you'll find it very quiet. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a quick question.
What the standards are that you use for approval of rezoning, your standards? Your
Standards for
your
rezoning.
procedure that you use, the standards you look at before you approve a rezoning.
Carrie?
Any rezone request looks at the neighborhood and what the existing zoning, what the existing uses are in the neighborhood, and whether the proposal is what the Plan Commission feels would be appropriate for the area. And theirs is a recommendation. Council also ultimately has the approval or disapproval authority. So there would be a public hearing following this if it were to move forward. So that's what we look at. We look at the comprehensive plan and we look at what the area is. So that's where the recommendation comes from.
Compliance will certainly change once the zoning changes. The compliance you will require. By now, you must know about how many buildings you're proposing to put on this property.
That would have to be answered by the applicant.
For now, it's just a rezone to sell the property
Why does it need to be rezoned? Just for a sale? I mean, we'd all like to sell.
Yes.
Apparently, yes. They need the rezone to sell the property, and the owner has that right.
Just a quick question. You guys, are you across on the north side of Rawson?
No.
They're
Down
in
southwest
King Arthur's
or
Court.
southeast?
Behind it, so they'll be looking at the back. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Dawn?
But there are many homes that were never notified. No one was notified over on the north side. No one.
You only get notification within 300
Well,
feet.
it certainly will impact them
Within-
to move to
Ma'am,
manufacturing.
By code, by
And they were
ordinance,
not notified.
you only notify within 300 feet of the property. Dawn?
Light manufacturing.
Explain to me, or correct me if I'm wrong, we could hold this and wait till we got the use and layouts of what is proposed on the land?
If you held the application until you got a conditional use permit application, it would actually change the overall review. So what you would technically be doing is changing this, or you'd be kind of in essence denying it, but then it would be a request for more information, so it would be a reapplication. I have to say that I did ask why they were not pursuing the conditional use permit at this time. That's something that the applicant would have to provide information for, but one of the things is that they wanted to, there's going to be 2 owners if the proposal moves forward, so they only wanted to apply for their portion of the conditional use, whereas if the other owner would be responsible for their conditional use permit. So there's that dichotomy, but if the Plan Commission does want to hold this for more information, you have the right to do that. I just don't know that it would be, you'd be asking for the applicant to apply for the conditional use permit concurrent with the rezone, which would technically change the review. So I'd have to check into the legality of what that would really do, but you
Keep
can't
in
hold for
mind,
more
they're within
information.
their rights to do it the way they're doing it.
It is, yes, but it is a little bit of an interesting situation to split the rezone from the conditional use for the very reasons that were brought up tonight.
Is that
which
because there's going to be 2 owners?
There's 2 different owners that I think are on 2 different time frames for development, but
Aren't we really looking at is if this property is the right spot for light manufacturing, which we created for some of these very reasons? Regardless, it's got to fit in ultimately. I mean, they could change, regardless of what they, this could change within that zoning.
it could.
So-
Yes. That's why the proposal is before you as just a rezone. They do have the right to do that. The Plan Commission can review this to determine whether the zoning district is appropriate for the area. That's what's before you now. However, if you want to know whether or not the proposed zoning is appropriate for the area, given what the property will be used for, because again, this could be anything in the LM1 district, it is, again, I keep saying the same thing. Conditional use permit is generally reviewed at the same time as a rezone request, but it doesn't have to be.
And once, if we looked at this as a package and rezoned it because we thought it was appropriate, and 2 years later it turned into something else in LM1, I mean, that can happen, correct?
Ultimately, anything other than an interior assembly of materials would require a conditional use permit, so there would be additional review
That fit that zoning.
that would fit the zoning. And the reason that they're asking for LM1 is because we don't allow self-storage facilities in the B4 district, and staff did not feel that M1 was appropriate for the area, so the only other district would be LM1.
Kim Van Voort, 7263 South Delane Drive.
Thank you.
I am at the top of where this facility, they're asking for the rezoning. And from what I understand is that you take into consideration for approval on these rezonings, the area, is that correct? The population that is being affected by this, the neighborhoods, the businesses, all those go into that consideration, correct?
For the rezone,
Yes.
if we feel it's appropriate for that area.
Okay. And so I understand that this is being proposed as a 24-hour business, correct?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know at this time, right?
No.
Okay. So it could be.
They'd have to come through here for conditions and restrictions, just like
Okay.
any other LM1.
And so
that came through.
there's a huge safety concern for me when I first heard about this happening, which was my reason for coming this evening. And that is because, I'm a woman who sometimes walks my dog at 1 o'clock in the morning because she has to go potty. And that area of right where that is, that's our walking trails, that's our potty areas, that's our common areas that we can walk our dogs and allow them to relieve themselves. So I'm in that area at 1 o'clock in the morning by myself. And a 24-hour business, which I don't know what's coming in and out of that area, that's a safety concern for me.
Well, LM1 doesn't operate as a business per se, 24 hours.
The LM1 zoning
It'd have-
district specifies allowed uses within the district. It
But-
doesn't specify hours of operation.
Correct, but
we,
the only
we
thing
don't-
that would probably go
we can't
24 would be a
impose-
self-storage, and it would probably be fenced and secured. But again, we're speculating because we don't know. So you
Correct.
can
You aren't
guess
just
all you want.
speculating,
Ma'am,
Mr. Mayor.
she
I
has,
know, I'm just-
she
I'm
has the
with-
floor, ma'am.
Yeah, sure.
You aren't speculating because we looked at Venture Space. They have 3 other facilities out in the west, in Waukesha County. They are open 24 hours. They are not just self-storage. There are businesses run inside of them. They are open 24 hours. You can look at their Venture Space ones that are already there.
And what's in front of us is a rezone. We're
Well,
not here on the conditions
But
and
you
restrictions.
indicate that one of the reasons that you think it's appropriate for LM1 is because it does fit into the neighborhood, but you don't realize what you are allowing if you don't realize what this proposal is going, who's the buyer is for this proposal.
A month ago, we rezoned an LM1 property adjacent to a subdivision. And it was appropriate, and it went through it, and they satisfied the concerns of the neighbors at the time when they came in with conditions.
But we don't even know what's going to go here. Lights, sound, odors from the businesses.
At the time we rezoned the LN1 property, we rezoned it with the same information about we had here.
So you can't, based on rezoning standards of, you know, how legally how things work, you can't require the applicant to provide information prior to approval of rezoning?
Carrie?
It's not a question of legality, it's just they have the right to request a rezone, and the Plan Commission can make a recommendation based on the information that's been provided. If the Plan Commission doesn't feel they have enough information, then they can't make a decision.
And that's what I'm requesting from you.
Thank you.
I'm requesting that you ask for more information to make that decision, because that seems appropriate in this case.
Brian?
Just looking at the write-up that they provided for this application, the CSM, which is the next item, is going to split this lot into 2 halves, roughly, east and west. The east half, they're proposing to have self-storage units on the east half. I'm assuming those are going to be long buildings, driveway down the middle. The west half of this lot would be the condo storage units, if that helps you determine what this is. They're looking at roughly 400. Some of them are going to be climate controlled units ranging 10 by 10 to 12 by 35 for the self-storage units.
Right, and according to their website, those condo
That's
storage
not-
units,
that's
what
not
those are,
venture.
what those are used for.
But that's not venture.
Right.
This is somebody else that is just running a self-storage facility. Those would be the ones that would be on the east side that would back up to the Camelot Trails.
Regardless of that information, I think that it still is appropriate, considering the neighborhood, considering the population, considering the current condition of the area, to ask for more detailed information. I don't think that that is much to ask from all of you. I don't. I think that that's appropriate, because I think you could make more of a better decision based on a little bit more information. This seems very vague to just go and approve a rezoning with, like, I don't know really what's gonna go in here and what's gonna happen. We're just gonna slap a rezone on it. I get that you did that in one area and it ended up turning out great, but what if you do it in this area and it doesn't turn out great? That lies on your head. And then I'm gonna come back here and along with my neighbors, and we're gonna be here fighting that if it doesn't turn out great.
Currently B4. There could be many things in a B4 district that could go in there.
I mean, there's
Have you
nothing,
ever-
nothing currently
Would you oppose
manufacturing.
anything in the B4? Do you just oppose development, or do you just oppose because it's LM1 versus B4?
I'm opposed anything with the terms of light manufacturing, because that can be taken and loopholes can be found, things can be changed about, you know. Light manufacturing scares a residential area.
Before, Carrie,
I
can
mean,
you clarify?
that's your foot in the door on light manufacturing. I mean, it could go from one step to the next and it becomes something terrible.
Carrie?
B4 that's currently, Carrie, what are some of the other uses that can go in there? Can you give a few examples?
You could have a fast food restaurant,
McDonald's.
you could have an office, you could have basically any number of retail businesses.
Bowling alleys?
Recreation, yes, you could
Recreational
have all of that. You could
facilities.
you could have.
I mean, there's a lot of B4 that are
More intrusive.
even more
Could be
intrusive
more
than
as is
LM1s.
But they're more building on the economy, though. They're more building on the prosperity of the area. This isn't building on any prosperity. This isn't a restaurant coming in and bringing in people and business and making, you know, a great area for people to have meals and stuff. This is just some garages. You know, that's not going to help anybody.
Well, you don't know that they could be providing a service that's, you know, being underserved right now based upon their data and the information they have.
Ultimately, the owner has a right to sell their land if we find something that fits, and the land is for sale.
I just don't think it's appropriate for the location that it is being asked for. I don't think that it's an appropriate location. It's right in the backyard of my home. It's not appropriate.
Would it be appropriate if it was a McDonald's?
If it were farther out, I mean, McDonald's is not going to be right in the backyard of my home. It's not going to be, a McDonald's wouldn't stretch that far back.
If it was an office park?
What do you mean?
If it was a strip mall all the way back?
There is a strip mall currently there that doesn't stretch
No.
to my backyard.
But it could. A bowling alley?
The way
Outdoor
it's zoned
volleyball
right
courts.
now,
It could be any of those
Any of
things.
those things could go in until we change it to
Right, and I
LM1.
mean, we're both going back and forth with
very
the same
much-
concerns.
we're in a-
You have concerns, and I have concerns, and so I'm asking you to get more information than just this vague, let's go ahead and rezone.
Thank you. We need your name and address, sir.
Brandon, same as hers.
No, we need your last name, not same as
Brandon
hers
Van
and
Dorst,
address.
7263 South Delane Drive. What we're concerned is that this goes and bridges into our community like a road. We don't want a road, a through street at
There
all.
will be no street.
And we don't want this one property becoming another because this person has already tried purchasing other property in the same area, trying to, from my understanding. And,
Well, to
so-
his
so there's
what-
land east and south in that area. He's tried purchasing that land as well. And so I wouldn't mind if it was a business that I could go into and see the owners and everything, but these storage units could be anything. And the ones that look like condos, they've taken out the center and turned it into a whole business, you know. I have pictures of what they look like. They look more like houses without windows and garage door, and who knows what's in them. They're just a mystery.
Well, we do have zoning ordinances for what can be in those buildings.
And in his other businesses, there is restoration, car restoration, and what we don't want is noise at all hours of the night. We can hear the mega discount place when they're doing stuff, and that's right next to it. So we can hear that clearly. It's right in our backyard. We're the third one down. If you go and walk the land, it's in our backyard. We're gonna be looking at these buildings, the back ends of these buildings.
I understand that, but if it's B4, you could possibly
Yeah,
be looking
and
at
we would
buildings.
we
Sir,
don't
we're
know what's-
we're doing just a ton of speculation here on everything that can be, and what we're looking at is a rezone that was put before us by the owners. So
Put it
with
on
that,
record.
where's the council at?
Mr. Mayor,
Oh.
is there anyone interested in possibly hearing what's in the LM1 district? Because I think there's.
Yes, I think you need to really clear that up. I mean, and please listen with an open mind as to what is allowed in the LM1.
So the LM1 district allows as a permitted use, assembly, production, or manufacture from previously prepared materials and packaging, apparel and things like apparel, books, brooms, canvas, flags, and related products, communications equipment, dental, ophthalmic, orthopedic, prosthetic, surgical equipment, earthenware, table and kitchen articles, electrical lighting and wiring equipment, engineering labs, scientific and research instruments, furniture, garage doors, handbags. Again, these are all things that would be manufacture and assembly from previous materials. So nothing is a raw material that would be allowed to be, produced on the site. And it would all be interior. Also, establishment of laboratories, sorry, I just lost my spot. Research and product development, engineering and testing, office buildings, which would be professional, administrative and computing, photography studios, and then accessory uses. Conditional uses would be animal hospitals and boarding kennels, breweries and distilleries that are of a maximum size, business parks, which exclude manufacturing, distribution, freight, shipment, terminals, depots, and yards, and outdoor storage. That's all prohibited. Commercial bakery and food production, excluding animal processing, would be also a conditional use. Commercial greenhouses, commercial service facilities such as restaurants, financial institutions, and clinics. Contractors' offices and shops without outdoor storage, flavor extracts, hotels and motels, incubator or accelerator facilities, indoor commercial recreation facilities, light manufacturing parks, which exclude distribution, freight, shipment terminals, depots, yards, and outdoor storage, pharmaceutical processing, research and science parks, retail or wholesale operations, self-storage facilities, which have a lot of extra requirements, and that's it.
See, it's very broad. The array, the speculation you could put into any single business, all have pros, they all have cons.
I guess a light and sound barrier, if it's gonna go through, we need some kind of barrier.
Again, that would be taken up at conditions and restrictions, and we have strict ordinance on. I think we addressed it tonight on stray light pollution with the dealership. Yes, and again, you'd all have say so with it. The last one we did do, the neighbors came in and their concerns were taken care of to their satisfaction.
What was done with that one?
What was done with it? It was rezoned. It's going in, and
Light
it
can't leave onto your property.
right.
It
It's
can't grow
simple.
anymore. It can't expand.
No,
It's gonna
no.
stay on their property.
It was very much a similar property. It was adjacent to a business district and a residential district, and it was kind of an odd property. And as Commissioner Johnson said, kind of long, narrow buildings went in. They were self-storage. They're fully fenced. Their hours of operations were limited. People could not enter at night. It was not 24 hours, and that is at the discretion of the commission to allow those hours. Just because somebody says they're going to do 24 hours doesn't mean they're getting 24 hours. Carrie?
In the interest of fairness, though, that particular application that you're referring to was a combined rezone and conditional use. This is separating them out.
Yes, yeah, you are correct in that. So they did have a clearer picture, and we
Yeah,
realized.
we just don't know the unknowns.
Yeah, we realize you are in the dark. I think Commissioner Johnston gave a pretty good indication of what they're looking for.
I can see what they're looking for, but yeah, just keep us in your consideration.
Okay.
And that we're opposed to it.
Great, thank you. We got one more guy, one more person. Come on up, sir.
I'm Michael Freedy, and I'm with VentureSpace, so I'll be happy to answer all your questions.
You can move the microphone up. You don't have to slouch.
Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time. The reason why we are first attempting to do the rezone and the new CSM is because the property as it exists right now really isn't marketable, because it really is two lots, but one of the lots is too narrow to actually do something with. So we're looking to kind of maintain two lots, but make them more useful. And then with the LM1 zoning, that'll make the property, again, more useful and more marketable. The reason why we're not coming forth with a development plan at this point is VentureSpace personally may not develop either lot. We do have a buyer that is interested in one of the lots for self-storage, and because he's a separate entity, we felt it would be more appropriate for us to deal with the rezoning and the new CSM and let them put forth their development plans, and then they could answer their questions. And in terms of the other lot, we may develop it, we may just sell it. But the rezoning and making the lot a more appropriate size would make the property more valuable to sell.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that helped a little bit. So Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I don't know what more information than what we just got we're going to get. I mean, he explained why they're in this format. We still have conditions in use and final direction to the council's approval at the end, so I'm prepared to go forward. I don't know what
Anybody wants to entertain a motion? Or Dawn?
Remember, we can suggest buffers, foliage and trees, and we've done that in many cases so that you're not looking at a big blank wall, so that maybe you have places to walk the dog and things like that. So we do have some authority after this to be able to provide the quality of, somewhat the quality of life, maybe not acres behind your house, but know that we do have some of those kind of things in place going forward after this. Oh, you got it.
Wally?
No, I was just gonna say, she just asked, why don't I have plans? I think it's too soon. They've already given us a general indication of what's going there. I guess that's what we have to make our decision on, what they think's going, because anything could change over the years. We have no control over that.
And again, we're looking on Rawson Avenue, a major thoroughfare that it does have B4 as it is, and if in my determination that LM1 is just as appropriate, that's what I'm prepared to vote yea or nay to. Carl moves that, I want to make sure I got the right one, H. Carl moves that the commission recommends the common council that the properties at 1901 and 1941 East Rawson Avenue be rezoned from B4 Highway Business and A1 Limited Agriculture to LM1 Light Manufacturing after a public hearing.
Dickmo second.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Clark, aye. Davich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Rella.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
5I, certified survey map for the properties we just discussed at 1901 and 1941 East Rawson from B4 to and A1 Limited Agriculture to LM1 Light Manufacturing. Carrie?
The proposal is for a CSM to reconfigure the two lots into two conforming lots, 4.34 and 5.66 acres each. Lot 1, as we discussed, would be proposed for self-storage, and Lot 2, if Venture Space moves forward with their commercial condo facility. Both would need conditional use permit approval. We Energy's easement is shown, but the CSM is missing a 45-foot wide access easement along Rawson Avenue and a We Energy's easement that runs north-south parallel to the existing building. A wetland delineation is scheduled for June 5th, and this must be shown on the CSM prior to recording. Access from Rawson Avenue is controlled by Milwaukee County. Copies of all approvals and/or permits shall be provided to the Department of Community Development and Engineering Department. Staff's recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Michael Freedy of Venture Space LLC for the properties at 1901 and 1941 East Rawson Avenue be approved, subject to conditions 1 through 4. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. I think we kind of discussed a lot of this in the previous item. Anybody have any comments, questions? I think we're there.
Carl moves the Plan Commission recommends the Common Council and that the certified survey map submitted by Michael Freedy Venture Space LLC for the properties at 1901 and 1941 East Rawson Avenue be approved with the following conditions. 1, that the CSM is revised to incorporate the LM1 Light Manufacturing Zoning District requirements instead of the M1 Manufacturing Zoning District requirements. 2, that all easements and wetlands are shown and clearly labeled on the map prior to recording. And 3, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes, are made prior to recording.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Clark, aye. Davich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Rella.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
That brings us to 5J, plan review for building, landscape, and lighting plans submitted by Greg Thompson, Storage Shop USA for the properties at 401 and 331 East Oak. Carrie? Are you ready for this one?
I'll finish up.
Oh, Pete.
Unfortunately, I had to reboot my computer, so I have to get my on-screen technology back working. I've been waiting so quietly over here. I'll try to bring the pace down, slow it down a little bit. We've been going through items so quickly this evening.
I appreciate that, Pete. You're all heart.
Yep. All right. Thank you for your patience. All right. This is for the properties at 331 and 401 East Oak Street. You may be familiar with this project. We have gone through a comprehensive plan amendment, a rezoning and conditional use, and now we are coming down the stretch with, we actually had the CSM, and now we're in the final stretch of site, building, and landscape review. The development is located, I said, as on the location map at 331. On your screen now is the site plan. The applicant is proposing to build 5 condo units. It's a Storage Shop USA is the name of the company, and the idea is to sell each of these units individually, at which then the owner can have a business or lease out the space for other uses. This is was a conditional use to allow for this. On the site, first thing I'll talk about is the parking requirements. Since this is a manufacturing, the requirements are 2 parking stalls per tenant, and there are actually 10 tenant spaces here. They are proposing a total of 20. There's 1 in front and 1 in front of the dock door, which I could bring up an example of the picture which you would see. So you'd have a parking space in front of one of the windows, and then as well as 1 in front of the dock doors, including the space inside the building. Minimum requirement would be 20 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing 21. The building exterior will be of hardy plank and brick accents on buildings 1 and 3, as shown on the earlier site plan. You can see here, the horizontal will be the hardy plank and then the brick accents, as well as also the windows that they have proposed. Not all the buildings are being proposed to be of hardy plank, which is a fiber cement product. That is an acceptable exterior material with a 3/4 approval of the Plan Commission. The applicant is proposing to only use hardy plank for the visible perimeter, and then the areas that are not visible would prefer to use LP Smart siding, which is a wood composite type siding. And the applicant, I spoke with him, and I was going to have him talk to you about why this would be an acceptable material. Staff stance is that the whole building should be a fiber cement, which is for consideration, but I will defer to him to discuss and persuade you to believe otherwise. The one thing that the staff does propose is, so I can get rid of that and make it bigger, is that the elevation that's being proposed for 6th Street the drawing that's shown in A13, the one in the lower left-hand corner. The reason the recommendation staff recommends that be the elevation facing Oak Street is the fact that you have the gabled roof, you have that this section also is pushed out further from the building, and also this side has the most brick accents of all of the elevations. The applicant, when asked, agreed to use that elevation for the street frontage. Right now, the landscaping plan in your packet was the first draft of the landscape plan. He has submitted a new one since then. It's up on the screen right now. And as you can see from the previous landscape plan in your packet and the one that he's proposing now is definitely a larger, more robust landscape plan. One of the things that I wanted to point out is that this parcel abuts residential to the east and requires a 20-foot buffer yard, which the building setback and the buffer yard are met. So on the eastern end, the first plan was to have, I think there were 4 existing trees. He has now incorporated additional pine trees along the eastern end, and also taking consideration on this particular site is that On the neighboring parcel, there is an existing tree line that's already there. This property is owned by Milwaukee County. The idea was part of the airport noise abatement that they own this parcel. And so the applicant has asked that, that be taken in consideration as part of the landscape plan, even though that's not on their property. It is existing. It is a vacant parcel. There is no development there. And with the county owning it, there's not likely a chance that there's a resident that's going to build a house there at this time. One of the other things that bring your attention, unfortunately, I don't have further detail about the dumpster enclosure, but there is a concrete pad at the southern portion. He does propose to have screening around the dumpster along with two large trees at the very end that would meet the standards. He proposes to have a dumpster enclosure that would meet the same materials as used on the exterior of the buildings. Included in your report are examples of his other locations. I guess let me backtrack just since I did put it in your report. This is an example of the tree line that exists right on the lot line. And so that is one of the things that the applicant wants consideration for when it comes to his landscape plan. Here's an example of existing development in another community. As you can see, here's that gabled roof, the brick accents that are facing the street. Just another illustration of what's being proposed. Here's what the interior would look like. Now, this development definitely larger than what is being proposed. There's only 5 units being proposed in this development, where here you can see it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units deep. The lighting, this is the proposed lighting plan. I did speak with the electrical inspector and said that what was being proposed is in compliance with lighting code. Having said that, staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the site building and landscaping plan submitted by Greg Thompson, Storage Shop USA, for the properties at 331 and 401 East Oak Street with the conditions 1 through 5.
Thank you, Pete. We'll open it up for questions, comments from the commission. Wally.
Okay, that certified survey map, we're looking at this as one parcel, although we haven't seen the certified survey map. That will be coming to us then.
That already
Look
has
at
come
it again.
through.
Came through.
You did that,
one.
yeah.
I think you were on vacation.
You were gone, I believe you.
When was this? I'm sorry.
Probably this winter when
Since
you were
beginning
on
of the year, I
vacation.
believe,
Oh,
yes.
thank you guys for reminding me. I love Texas. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's why the condition number 1 is that the certified survey map be recorded prior to.
Okay, so it's got to be recorded, but we've seen it basically. Okay, thank you.
Brian, Dawn, anybody? Greg? Yeah.
I guess back to Pete's point on the siding issue, if I understand it right, I think their take is no one's going to see it. Doesn't sound like a lot of future development around it, but.
I think when we had our discussions about the exterior materials, there was some, he wanted to demonstrate or show the durability of this.
My name is
Smart
Otto
siding compared
Santula.
Hang on a second.
Just
sir.
1 second, sir.
So, staff's recommendation is to go with the fiber cement. That's an allowable material as outlined in our code with a 3/4 majority, where the code does have that out for the Plan Commission to determine any exterior materials, metal panels, so on. And this would be something that he would want to discuss with you as to why it's a valued exterior material.
Maybe we hear that after this, gentleman.
Sir, name and address, please.
My name is Otto Santula at 400 East Oak Street. I've got a few questions in regards to the project. First of all, I have never seen a site grading and drainage plan for the site. I would like to see that because of the fact that there is a drainage problem around there and that exists, and the the drain water that's coming down now is ending up in my property. And I can't develop my property, I can't do nothing because it's continuously flooded. And the only other thing I have to say about the project there is that they are going to have to bring the sewer for these buildings across Oak Street and into an easement on my side of the street. I'm on the north side of Oak Street, and this project's on the south side.
So what I'm trying to say is that the sewer problem that exists there is going to be exacerbated by the fact that they can't get gravity feed because the West Shore pipeline is lying just parallel in a ditch to the West Shore pipeline. The sewer as it is presently located. I would like to have the city engineer look into that because I don't want them disturbing that West Shore pipeline and causing problems on my land.
Understood.
That's my problem.
Okay, we'll try to get those answers as we move along here.
Pardon?
We'll try to get some of those answered if we can as
Yeah,
we
if we
move
can
along.
get the answers, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Brian, very quickly, can you, do you know where they're at on the drainage?
I do know where they're at on the drainage. The drainage you're talking about is shown on the plans here. That's that big wetland that's been a wetland for the last 40 years. That hasn't changed. Go back and look at all the old aerial photos. It's been a wetland. It's still a wetland.
We went
Nothing's
over
changed
that
there.
when
It's
we
it's in a hole. It's not going to leave. The other issue with the West Shore pipeline, I spoke with them this week. They're roughly 5 feet deep with their pipeline. The sanitary sewer is at 15 feet. We'll be well underneath of the West Shore pipeline.
But we won't disturb that pipe.
No.
So did you understand that? So the sewer is a non-issue, and the wetland, Brian, are you saying that what they're doing is not going to add to the wet hole that's already there?
Drainage now goes to that wetland. They're not adding more than a half acre of impervious areas, so they don't need stormwater, but it's still draining to that wetland, just like it does today.
Okay, and then the sewer will remain untouched. So hopefully, sir, Otto, that's okay. Did you hear the answers to those questions, sir? That's okay. Come on up. We'll repeat it. So Brian Johnston's our resident engineer and expert when it comes to this stuff. So he's going to repeat the question to your sewer question and also the wetlands question.
The West Shore pipeline is roughly at 5 feet deep. The sanitary sewer is at 15 feet. So they'll be well below that West Shore pipeline for that connection to the sanitary sewer.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The West Shore pipeline is 5 feet deep. The sanitary sewer is at 15 feet.
Not in that area. Matter of fact, what we brought, the sanitary sewer came up and is insulated, and so that it was brought up so close to the surface that we could get the sanitary sewer extended as far out as possible. It cost me $65,000 to do that. But we do have gravity feed on the sanitary sewer.
Yes. And that's a discussion that I just had this week with West Shore Pipeline. They're not concerned with that pipeline and the sanitary sewer connection in this location.
Well, what I feel is that by the time the sanitary sewer comes across the street, across Oak Street, onto the easement, they will had to bring the pipe up, and they won't get gravity feed on that pipe coming out of that property because there's no slant. They'll be at the same slant as the sanitary sewer pipe. That's it.
Without basements here, they're not going to be that deep. And with a sanitary sewer that's 15 feet deep, we shouldn't have a problem with gravity feed.
Like I say, I think there's a complication in there. It has to be looked into more detail.
Can do.
And that is one of the conditions 1 through 5 we talk about. Prior to any building permits being issued, that a stormwater and grading plans are submitted for approval by engineering. That's all right.
That's okay.
Right, and at this point, our engineering has reviewed preliminary plans, and right now, we're going to work with them, to make sure that the drainage is correct and everything is not negatively impacting the neighborhood.
Sir, we'll need you on the microphone, though. You have to speak on the microphone because this is being recorded. We do minutes, so.
I'm sorry that I can't.
That's okay. Fine. You're fine. You're fine. So again, engineering will go over everything to make sure everything's up to snuff. And as far as the drainage goes into that wetlands area, they've done the calculations. They're adding only a half acre, am I correct in that, Brian, of impervious surface? It should be able to handle that. That land's been wet for 40 years. It'll still be wet, but we won't add any more, any less to it.
Well, like I say, when I looked into the pit, when the SERP was put in, they were very close to one another.
And again, their engineering's working on that. We'll be okay. Put it this way: if we damage it, it won't be your fault. The cost will be on us. So
it won't be my fault.
No, it won't be your fault, sir. No, not unless you're out there with a pick and a shovel. It ain't gonna be your fault.
Because that pipe has been disturbed on other properties and quite costly to whoever did it.
Very much so. So we need a competent contractor, but we should be okay. So.
Mayor, can you encourage him maybe to see engineering one-on-one?
Yeah, if you'd like to, during the day, you can make an appointment with engineering as they get closer and come to City Hall, and then you can talk to them one-on-one.
I told about this problem for years, and I haven't never gotten any results.
Well, now that something's going in there, maybe it'll be a little different, hopefully. But I think we'll be okay. I do think we'll be okay.
Okay, I'm relying on you to take care of that part.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Evening. Jesse Fraker, 231 East Oak Street. I'll be brief. It's been a long night. I've learned a lot. I recently purchased the property at 231 East Oak Street. Let me express my disappointment with the rule about 300 feet. It wasn't until recently that I found out about this whole project going on. My concerns, naturally, because we just purchased the house, how it will impact the value. I'm just curious, after listening to all this, about what this property was originally zoned as and what it was changed to.
Can you refresh? Was it our?
It was
R1?
residential, single-family residential, and then
And that's where I have a problem, because I purchased this property fully expecting that someday it would be developed and I would see other houses there. Not being notified this, I couldn't be here from the get-go. And as you can imagine, I'm pretty upset, because now you've opened up the door for more commercial property on this side of the street, and that's going to affect.
Well,
my
it's just
property
those two lots that got rezoned LM1.
Just those two. They were originally residential.
Yeah, they were, but the owner or the powers that be came in and requested the zoning change.
Again, if I would have known about this, I would have
Right.
been here. I wouldn't have purchased this property if I knew this was going to happen.
Sorry, but our ordinance states you'll be notified within 300 feet. And
I understand. And
sometimes
there's
sometimes
my
they extend
disappointment
it,
with
but
that.
that's by the alderman's request. And the
Because
alderman-
I'm 350, 400 feet away.
I know, and
There's 4 residential houses on
Sir,
that street.
I understand that, but there's a cutoff, and for some reason, it's 300 feet. Now, if the alderman wanted to extend it, it's his discretion, and then they send that notice out, but.
Well, I think in an instance where you're changing from residential to, I'm sorry, what did you?
LM1.
M1.
M1.
M1?
Yep.
That you could have gone a little bit further. It's a dead-end street. Like I said, there's 4 residents there. Everybody could have gotten notice of this. I don't know if I have any legal standing based upon what I've heard tonight, what you've told me. If I do, I will look into it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank Pazalinsek, 611 East Oak Street. I sold a property to the new purchaser. And if individuals who did a little homework, all the properties on Oak Street are being bought out by the Milwaukee County, and they're being zoned to M1. My property, airport wants at 611 East Oak Street. The property I sold, the airport wanted, and that's going to be manufacturing. All the property from 401 East would be M1. All the property, I think right now, Milwaukee County owns 4 of those properties, and they're not going to be residential. The individual mentioned about amount of water being on Oak Street, east of the property of 401. West of the property. If you look at how many manufacturing businesses on the north side of the street, where does that water run? It runs on the low side, on the south side of Oak Street. He mentioned about his building, 401. When he built 401, why didn't he put in a holding pond? City of Oak Creek gave him permission. He didn't have to put in the holding pond because he has all the other property and he had to put in more green space. Lo and behold, all of a sudden that property, 401, went up for sale and he subdivided the lots on the north side of the street. 401 is a small little lot now. No holding pond. Where does that all water run? Another thing I'm puzzled. Where does the water run from the rain gutters off that building? Is it connected to the storm sewer? Thank you.
Good questions. Brian, you know the answer? You're kind of smiling like the Chester cat down there.
There's no storm sewer in this area, it's just ditches.
That whole street is,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
There's no underground laterals. They'll just naturally find its way to the low spots. And that's by design.
That's how it was installed.
That's how it was
when
here
built.
60 years ago. Anything else from council? All right. Oh, come on up. Join the parade.
All right, Greg Thompson, Storage Shop USA, 6810 Cross Country Road, Verona. And I just wanted to show you a couple examples of the material used for the siding because I think fundamentally they operate in the same function. They're probably equal in terms of durability, and I'm not in an overlay. So I thought maybe I could, because the siding, the wood siding, I think is, for me, it's more economical. It's easier to install, and I personally feel it's a better product. It's actually being touted as one of the best siding products out on the market today. So I have 2 examples. Can you tell me which one's which?
For the option.
Well, one's Hardy Plank and one's LP Smart Side. Oh, sure.
I would say based on the color, that's the Hardy Plank. Well, the Hardy Plank always has a duller, that's shinier, like they glossed it to
Plus it's
seal it.
thicker. I think it's thicker too, isn't it, the one?
The net effect on the building is that they're going to look the same. So if it seems to me that if the Hardy Plank or the fiber cement, because it's a masonry product, and that was the reason for it, but it was allowed. I figured, well,
Is it driven by maintenance issues or our concern, Pete? I know his is cost.
This is a
Why we
50-year
want
warranty.
one over the other? Is it for upkeep or how long it lasts, or is that the issue?
Well, that and, fiber cement, we have masonry, we have, it kind of falls into place that keeps a consistency. Whereas if we go with wood siding, that just kind of takes out the whole design standard we had for masonry, brick, or decorative stone and glass.
the masonry product or the LP Smart side, I think they're equal in terms of warranty. That's a 50-year warranty on that wood product. So they actually press they infuse the particles and then they press it. It's not like a piece of OSB and then they just put chemical on it. So it's a very good product. So yeah, oh no, I'll get 'em.
Masonry, it's brick. This, if they both appear the same, have the same durability, I'm not sure where my heartburn is, but I'll go with, I don't want to open up the door.
Again, I think this is my opinion. I think we're changing the standards. To me, it's still just particle board that's been pressed and engraved with wood. But still, it's just a glue and wood product. I just don't believe it's going to hold up like a masonry product over that length of time. I would opt to stay masonry all the way through and not change our standards.
So is that for the whole building or on?
I would like to see the whole building consistent. I wouldn't build my home with masonry on one side and vinyl on the next.
Okay.
That's me, but commissioners may have a difference of opinion.
I guess the only thing I'd say is specifically with this use in the areas that we've talked about at length, ad nauseum tonight. We probably want to keep the standard there, and I realize there's economic difference to you, but I understand the mayor's point at that.
Oh, just one other thing. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Before I forget, I know there was talk of the previous item on the agenda, and I just want to clarify something that I'm not in any way, shape, or form affiliated with Venture Space. They have kind of pirated my pictures, and I think that's why the citizens came up and were looking at my sites, because they don't have any buildings up. And so I just want to make sure that that was clear, that that is not in any way affiliated with me.
I appreciate you doing that, because when he had the pictures, I kind of thought,
yeah,
that's a different project because nothing was presented.
I was just going to ask if you're going to have any automotive happening or restoration going on the inside. But
Well, auto repair is not like for commercial purposes or whatever. But you have people like have cars and they work on their car and stuff like that. So
In the conditions and restrictions for this particular site, we have restricted, we have a list of what's permitted businesses in there. So that was part of that, to address that concern.
Commissioner Chandler?
And that was one of my questions. It shows that this is a place for business to store equipment and vehicles. Can you provide a little more information on what will be stored there?
you have a carpet cleaner. He comes in, he drops his van off, and it's a climate controlled environment, and he likes it that way. So it doesn't, he has a couple vans or something like that.
Okay, so that's the vehicles.
Yeah.
When you're referring to equipment, what is that referring to?
I don't have the list of all my uses, but it's any kind of service rep or something like that. Let's see. Drawing a blank. It's not like a lot of, it's just business equipment, I guess.
Just say a guy is a landscaper and has lawnmowers. He has a trailer with a big rider, or maybe he stores it in there.
And if it was a landscaper, it'd be a smaller one because, because you can't park outside or you can't store materials or anything like that. So
You're not allowing work on equipment in there, just storage of equipment. Is that correct?
Well, it depends on what equipment. I mean, if they have their van and they want to change their oil, yeah, they can do that. I'm assuming.
But as a rule, you're not going to have somebody working on
No wrenching cars.
replacing engines in a
No.
truck as a
No.
daily.
It's in the condo rules that there's no auto repair, woodworking, and welding for commercial purposes. That's actually a fire thing for insurance purposes.
Actually, Assistant Chief Kresick is going to take the floor here.
So these will be inspected. Now, certainly leading into the conditions and restrictions on that, there are certain factors that go in. There are certain things they can put in these structures. And once they cross that barrier, you start to get into suppression on these buildings. So they have to be very clear on what's going inside that structure. You know, it certainly is a fine line for somebody changing their oil on what could be deemed a commercial vehicle. So there needs to be some caution exercised, especially when setting up the leases. When we do inspect them, we will maintain the fire codes. The expectation is that they comply with that, and if we do see anything out of bounds, it will be noted. So I think that's probably the direction you're looking at, is what type of equipment will be in there. Once you get into larger commercial equipment, it changes the codes drastically. It's a lot different than somebody putting their van in there that they might do carpet cleaning. So that's a fine line to toe there. And then certainly the owner of the building and then the lessees need to be very careful on how they manage their equipment. If I could, two other quick points. Pretty standard for us, and we'll address it during the site plan review with the building permit applications. I'll jump back earlier tonight. Approved turnaround for fire apparatus at the south side. We'll work with the applicant to set something up that's approved by us. And the other point will be hydrant locations and distances to fire hydrants. There are two on the north side of the road that kind of flank the property. We'll get the measurements from the building owner to ensure coverages are in play.
Thank you.
And one additional question, there was a recommendation to use the elevation from 831 facing the street. Can the applicant provide any feedback on that change or recommended change?
Well, just typically, on a streetscape, we try to dress the property up, and that's why we go with that.
Oh, okay, so
yes.
that is acceptable?
It's pretty standard.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yep,
Thank you.
yep. And we got more you saw some pictures. I think our landscape plan is even more beefier than just some of the existing sites I saw, you saw pictures of, so.
Okay. Anybody else to the left? Wally? Anything?
Oh, not
Brian? Don? Craig? Chris? Pat? Fred? All right, I think we're done.
So as read, where are we at on the hardy plank?
How do we?
Oh, yeah, we have to address that. I gave my opinion, but I guess you should include it in conditions.
Is that an additional condition?
Yes, that would be an additional condition.
Yes, that's
Yes.
additional. Crowell moves that the commission approves the site building and landscaping plan submitted by Greg Thompson, Storage Shop USA, for the properties at 331 and 401 East Oak Street with the following conditions. One, that a certified survey map joining the two parcels is recorded prior to the issuance of building permits. Two, that all building and fire codes are met. Three, that a revised landscape plan is submitted for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications. Four, that stormwater and grading plans are submitted for final approval by the engineering department prior to the issuance of building permits. Five, that all water and sewer utility connections are coordinated with the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility. And six, help me out, Pete.
That the exterior materials be of hardy plank, or hardy plank siding should be used for all buildings.
Should be used for all
buildings on a
building
proposed development.
exteriors.
We're
You got it?
yeah.
Guzikowski seconds.
Roll call.
Dick and I.
Johnson, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Crowell, aye.
Shepherd, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thank you, sir, for
Good luck.
your patience. It was a nice, long, well conversed meeting. with that, I guess we're looking to adjourn. Before we adjourn, as usual, I'd like to thank the staff, our IT guy. Good conversation again. It's good we hash these things out and discuss them going forward. Make it much easier on our council. Thank you. Dawn?
Dawn.
You're on.
Carrillo moves to adjourn at 9:30.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnson, I.
Carrillo, aye.
Oric, aye. Kavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Brill, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Thank you all for joining us, and remember, get out there this Memorial Day weekend and discover Oak Creek and celebrate Oak Creek. Thank you.